Yes, Fambulen. A warm welcome and greetings and salutations from the then and now media empire. Today, the eve of the independence of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the 26th of April, 2021, me, now a host and presenter, Prince Emil Kroma, come live from the United Kingdom. Fambulem, this is a very special occasion with very special guests. And we want to let everybody as possible come onto this program so that you will be a part of a very significant period in the history of our country, which is about to celebrate 60 years of independence. For this program today, we get a man we don't need for belabor for introduce him, because for the past many months, this man has become a household name, a household face. Everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean everybody Sabiam. If you know Sabiam, that means you know the Sierra Leone matters and etc. But not only in one grain, although in program this today, for can provide perspective and reflection on 60 years of independence. Also upon this program today, we expect them big allejo them for come and weigh in with their perspective and reflection of 60 years of independence for the Republic of Sierra Leone. The flag we have seen on the background, with all due respect, the beautiful colors, green, white, and blue, the blown at the wind beyond a blue and white nimbus sky. We expect Dr. Kande Keller for at least make a 5-minute contribution to the program. Yes, when I hear me right. And you not stop there. We also expect the man who we named last year as the MP of the year, Honorable Ibrahim Tawa Conte, for also call the program and talk at least about 5 minutes or more if he wants about perspective of the country. And we get many more. We get many political party people when they come. The NDA Amadou Bari. We get Umfaji Kaba of Kamarimba in party. We get Wadi Williams. We get Arnold Bendu. So we get a studded star list we would expect for turn up today for grace this occasion, which is none other but the 60th independence anniversary on this very eve of the auspicious day where it's just about for unfold on us. What do you think? I want to let the chat room be busy, but I want to let we accord each other respect whilst we keep the chat room very busy. Remember, we've only got one country, and that one country day, now national duty for let we all see that country they better. So despite with different views, we expect say them views then in the end we go disagree for agree, because the bottom line is we want one common good for the country for go before let all man better. So like I've been say, it's a star-studded guest list, and we expect reflection and perspective from big stakeholder them na we society. So Fabula, once more, I want to remind you now, this is now the eve of the 60th anniversary celebration of we country. Salon attained independence in 1961. And let me give a brief background, just a brief one, because this is nothing where we all kind of familiar with. And here it is. So in 1961, we know say we people like kind of Lancaster House, after much deliberation back home, even though some people will still say, well, no, we don't want the election now, we're not ready for it, or certain things have to be done. But eventually, we did get the elections, and what a feeling it was, despite the disappointment by others, for our people to be free, for take their own destiny that their own hands. But 60 years on, we are where we are, and we want to note the way other people and feel about them, and some of them will be with very political leaders now the Republic of Sierra Leone. And also we get Mr. Chernoh Alpha Bar, M Bar of the Africanist Press here for guide me. So anyway, without much ado, make us see. I think say we get Dr. Kande Keller on the line, and we get and we get Honorable Tawa Conte, and we go allow them, because now very busy people, and let them offer them perspective and their reflection or reflect back on 60 years of independence. So Dr. Kande, if you hear me, sir, You can come on if you're not ready. If you're not ready yet, no problem. We can move on to Honorable Ibrahim Tawa Conte for later express some reflection and perspective on 60 years of independence. So whenever one are ready, sirs. But the program is on. And Fambulan Lekadeteruna, this is a very big and auspicious occasion for we the Sierra Leoneans them, and the ask Fambulan una continue for share this. This is huge. This is massive. Dr. Kande Yumkela can assure una is here for provide at least 5 minutes of perspective, and even if you want more, we will offer more time. Ibrahim Tawa Honorable is also on the platform for offer perspective as well on 60 years of independence. And I shall say we will hear from them very, very soon. In the meantime, the man who is here with me in the studio is none other but the Africanist Press biggest whistleblower, a man where, you know, sort of people and they look at him somehow, but here for can't tell we why up to this time with all the information and the way don't pull a kind of split opinion and only waiting at the percentage and no one gets percentage or percentages. But there are many things we give in reports them credibility and they speak from a perspective of statistics and the science and data. This is where I speak from when I say this. But in self there and go help for chat with we today. So before the guests they come, I want to turn this thing to 200. So that 200 they will go multiply into 400, and we expect 1,000 plus or more live viewers tonight for such an auspicious occasion. And I want for wish every Sierra Leonean, I want to use this opportunity on the Den and Now platform for wish every Sierra Leonean a happy 60 years independence anniversary. We know that things are not the way we expected, we aspirations, we hopes, they kind of look dashed, but the feeling, you know, of optimism, it always supports for Dede because a feeling of hope can always drive people towards raising the standards for better living condition of we all. But if we sort of give up, then imagine what a country we would have left behind for we people them. This is why much respect has to be given to we leadership them, especially the one that we didn't have tonight for can help we for understand where we were and where we go. And like I say again, we get the guests them, some of the guests them already in the chat room, and any moment from now, I don't know who wants to go first, but anytime when they're ready, of course, the platform is ready for take them on this journey. So again, like I've been saying, Fambulem, this na the Den and Now platform they come to na on the eve of independence. Okay, I've been telling us about people want to join the program tonight, and they want to contribute to the program, and we will keep them in the chat room, and we go wait and see who that one take the opportunity first. But whilst we wait, here are the things. In 1961, we attained we independence, and there was much to celebrate for. I know that there is huge disappointment. Again, like I said earlier on, the expectations of the people were dashed. The hopes of people were dashed. But notwithstanding, our country is still there to be managed. And only together we can happen for manage them. The task in front of us are enormous. It's a Herculean task. Just like the mountains we surround we, now so for mountain in terms of the development of a country are difficult. But then they probably a good might come from there. And that is if we show dedication and commitment and sincerity. And these are the points out to the leadership. In 1961, I wasn't born yet, but a few years after, I met the things them of 1961 and prior to 1961. In other words, a system. And by the time I grow up, they try to understand things. I've been so admire my country. And when I say admire, I mean them. Because then when we born now, we can't meet independence. Ruler with destiny in our own hands. The place been look so somehow when at in comparison to today. The place been so clean. Structures and processes were in place. Okay. We had some form of democracy, and therefore we the people had hope in then things then they. There was a lot ongoing. There were not much fear. Okay. because there was respect for law and order. There was respect for authority. But we know, say, there are questions today, we not begin today, it goes back many years before the now. But what I can always say to family is, all the rubbish and the rotting when the state suffered from 1961 prior to the war was the consequence of the war itself. So that war, there was the huge sacrifice that we, the people, had to make just for make sure, say, that we rise up from the ashes of this war and see a better Sierra Leone where we all can look up to, cherish, embrace, hug, and feel accomplished as citizens. But 60 years on, we understand the frustrations of we compatriots them by the huge disappointment which has met them. And the most recent one is after the war, I believe we've conducted 5 democratic elections. Some of the questions here tonight, are we making progress? Because we are supposed to be making progress. Are we progressing or are we retrogressing? These are the questions we'll be asking. All these things where we are hearing, is it filtering down to the people? Social welfare? Are the needs of our people being met? These are all the questions we want for asked today. Not of we guess them, all we expect we guess them for do, now for offer a perspective, reflect on 60 years of independence. Again, now the studio with us here tonight is none other but the Africanist president, Mr. Chernoh Alpha. We don't release so much bombshell them in terms of where people will call whistleblowing on the current government. But in work, they not just start now, because some people don't seem to understand this. I've referred people to his works. You can check Amazon. He's got a couple of books there that you can buy and read for yourself or yourselves. And you can find out, say, that them books there then go beyond. You can also see waiting on the happen at the country, like inside the parliament, for example. There have been reports where come out. Afrobarometer report points to parliament. Dr. Kande Yumkela has also raised his voice in a parliament, saying some of these things, then the way out and they go, they're not supposed for the go so for a nascent democracy. Recently, he spoke fervently in a parliament, and that was a poignant speech, Dr. Kande, if you hear me. In other words, waiting with the CISO or waiting some people and they do so today, other people then will come and do them, and in the end, we are making no progress. Hence where I say we retrogress, because other people then will come and do them, and they might even do worse. So we get for set examples, we get for set standards. But are those standards being set? Inside the same parliament, we see another MP where we say we call the MP of the year for 2020. Luckily, we get on today and maybe go offer some perspective. We're not here for question any of these leaders today. We just want to hear some perspective and some views on independence. Sierra Leone at 60. Okay, Sierra Leone at 60. So let's see if I'm able to bring any one of them come in. Let me see if I'm able to bring any one of them come in. So in the meantime, I'm saying, Fambule, unallow continue for share, unallow we continue for engage meaningfully in the chat room. Okay, let's show each other some decency and some respect. Let's show each other decency and respect. And let we be fervent about the issues that we did before we. Let we also look optimistically at the independent 60. We can get divergent views. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a democratic process. I don't have to think in the same way that you think, but we can have a conversation because we are all under the same boat, the flag for which we stand, the Republic of Sierra Leone. So Sierra Leone is at 60 just in less than 24 hours time. What do you think? What are your feelings? I want to see people and they have that chat day at the chat room. I really want to see people having this in the chat room, okay? I really want to see people and they have this in the chat room. Good. So I think we first guess we want to have a go. Let me see who is this. Who is this? Let me admit some more people. I see a few people coming. So for them one they will just join. We just want to remind Fambule and say this on the eve of independence, Sierra Leone at 60, would expect a reflective mood as to where we were, where we are, and where we are heading. What thing are you take? Where are we heading? Usa, you aspire for Siwi now, despite the disappointments politically, economically, and socially. Where do you expect to see us in a few years' time? And one profound question is one of legacy, and this goes to our leaders. And I think few of we leaders, they don't raise this because it is of a concern that we have to leave our country behind in a solid state for we picking them. Because however, this is where we come from. We picking them, we grand-picking them, and we future bearers them. But we can't leave a country in tatters because honestly, this is the way it has looked like for the last 30 to 40 years. And like I say again, we did fight a war. The real cause of this war was more political because the national pie wasn't being shared fairly. Injustice, inequities, Baku, okay, no social justice. And as a matter of time, all of this mount up for mean something. And in the art of war, when you push people against the wall and there is no exit, these people definitely bounce back. They do come back. So we fed that war day. From the ashes of the war, some of us were really hopeful. Very, very hopeful. Thanks for the opportunity to engage you. Stop it for the second time. It was nice engaging. Many thanks, Harold. Many thanks. So we definitely need for left wing country in a solid state than even the way how we fend them. It is a civic responsibility. It is a moral obligation. Because I don't know how we go feel if we left them in tatters. And like I say again, I want to bring in Dr. Yumkela, if you hear me, sir. I know say you're busy. Maybe you can offer 5 minutes quickly of some reflection, if you can. Geneva Bao, if you want to participate, we go like for you from you. All the people are waiting at the chat room. Anybody want to reflect on the 60 years of independence, which is about to down on us? We go really like for a different perspective, shades of opinion today on 60 years of independence. So the floor generally is open. Yeah. So just in case you want to contribute, we will like for know that. Nice engaging you. Thank you very much. So there are a few questions, compliments that are coming my way. Let me just admit all those people are in the waiting room. And like I say again, Fambulem, like I say again, Fambulem. Let me see what call is this. Probably somebody wants to participate. Somebody wants to participate. Matilda. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, my dear. How are you?
I'm good. Please don't put me on speaker. Yeah, please don't put me on live. Yes, please don't put me on live. It's no call. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. What's up?
I'm good. It's a personal call. Please don't put me on live.
Okay, hang on. Yeah. Okay, family, Una be with me. I'll just take this important call. I will come back to Una shortly. Yes, how can I help you? And kids watching. Yeah, that's true. Many thanks. Many thanks for the observation. I appreciate that. Okay, Taylor. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, Fambule. Many thanks. You see, we look after the platform. We get people who we care about the platform, and etc. So again, like I say, Fambule, we are on the cusp of making history again. Once more, is 60 years of independence in less than 24 hours. And we expect for you from an array of guests way day in the room. The prime one today is Mr. Chernoh Alpha Mba of the Africanist Press. We deal with me in a studio for help for chat along the way. provide reflection, talk about things that we don't happen and where they happen, and many other things we may get for talk about. It's a long drawn program, but at the same time, we invited few guests them for come, so we go have a conversation or then provide we with a reflection on how they see these 60 years, how we've been. And few of them did at the chat room. I don't know what they're waiting for, but the lines are open and you can make your contribution and go back. And in the meantime, just a quick announcement. We are more, yeah, okay. I think say we get somebody on the line. Okay. Hello, if you're not ready for come on, will you mute your phone, please? Will you mute your gadget, please? Somebody need for mute them gadget. Somebody need for mute their phone, please. And please, if you know they participate in the program, you have to mute your gadgets that you're using to watch the program. And let's keep the program professional, like people, you're sort of in the relaxed position while they talk, like lying on your bed. Remember that you are live. People and they pick up them pictures, then they pick up the video. So let's keep it kind of professional, especially at 60. Let's set some bright examples for we picking the way for watch them, please. Okay. So again, like I say, it's Sierra Leone at 60, and we're just about for down into that particular hour day, where officially the country, just like you celebrate your birthday, it becomes officially 60 years old. So we look for perception, we look for reflection, we look for perspective on 60 years of national independence. 60 years of national independence. So I guess there are many of us. I wait for people and for take the mantle, for tell people and come on, somebody help for keep the ball rolling. Mr. Chernoh Alpha Ember, of course, is the guest for the entire night. So I'm not in a hurry with him. But the guest the way we get, I mean, give us some 5 minutes of your perspective on 60 years of independence. What are your views? What's your take? So I hope for hearing from people beginning now, okay? This is not a monologue. I can invite people in. This is not a monologue. That's why I invited people. So do you we hear from Muna? Yeah? So Fambuda, like I say, 60 years, we've seen so many governments. Civilian governments, we've seen them all. Military governments, we've seen them all. They've all come and gone. And somewhere, somehow, we try or manage to discover ourselves. What do I mean by this? That we try and manage for discover ourselves. Because out of touch of politicians them, to meeting the needs of the people them, especially those of us who come in a period where we see something different, like I hosted a program yesterday with 5 strong personality, all women, from different professional backgrounds, but united by a cause for Make Salone Better. They were on the program talking about the problems them where the country they go through, which they went through, which they're going through. But one thing where they express is what are the gains that we've made, and are we capitalizing on those gains? So Fambule, from your perspective, it sometimes gets a little bit emotional for me because again, I born an era where I ride train, and that was wonderful for me. As I come back again, can't live in the Western world, I ride train and see train still they run, but train in my country is gone. I born on number 32A Guard Street, not far away from Dovecourt, just yards away, when I've been the last stop for the trains, for all general passengers. And from there, if the train ever move forward, then I for carry them, expats them further up in a hill station where they were. Now they them in there. But generally, the last stop now been Dovecourt. And as a child, as a boy, I rode train God knows how many times, because I don't think it will be the pay safe. You just walk along with your parents, then go jump inside train and you're gone. Straight roti funk. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Sunday night or Monday morning, mostly Sunday evening, you come back because you get for go to school. I ride double-decker bus. I see Clock Tower when Clock Tower was really Clock Tower, very clean, because I attend Holy Trinity Primary School, kindergarten and primary school up to class 3 or class 4. And you watch just there across, and I think you can get a supermarket, I believe, in a Choitram. But all Akisi Road, they clean. When I say clean, very clean, including Eastern Police. If you see white, I think white and blue, they use for paint them. That entire place, the way you see so. So I get vivid pictures of those places. Then move on to Cathedral Boys School. Then there is the park, then amusement center, then recreation center. Right there. In fact, part of the park formed the fence of the school. So lunchtime, we will leave from the school, run there and go ride merry-go-round and go ride seesaw. Imagine that. And swinging pole and things like that. And then the Victoria Park itself, lush looking, clean looking, with water fountain. I saw that all. Like I said, I ride double-decker bus, and when we go Cathedral, you walk down Howe Street or Garizin Street, can't remember all of the streets again, or Charlotte Street, straight down to Bossalt, and then you get sleds there, but there you get Bossalt, with them coaches there with the scene, and then good one, and clean looking one them. Red seats I still remember. Okay. Who's calling? Who's calling? Yeah. Red seats I still remember. Air condition, for that matter. Yet all of that is now gone. All of that is now gone. And many other things. Go bata, boku is day. Of course, buy boku sus na bata. Because now they always care you go before school starts. Go up Albert Academy. I go in high school. But for a few years before leaving. So you get clean poda and then I bunu there. If poda not clean, you know the rider. If you not play music, you know the rider. Not so now you get for sit down and squeeze up like you're like sardine. It's unfortunate, like the people that were born during this period, probably from the mid-late 80s and in the 90s, they know nothing but this thing the way that they see now, so you can't really blame them. But those of us who go beyond, you know, say we miss all them things and they. The point is, why didn't we capitalize on them things and they for move forward? Why didn't we? Look at transport. Everything looks dilapidated. It's just a fact. And I'm not blaming one particular side. All I'm saying, these were the things that we had. How and when and where did it go wrong? But I won't dwell on that because in my mindset, what I do think is, this is the reason why we fought war. This is the reason why we fought a war. And all we compatriots that we die for respect's sake, we decide for going to a table and make peace. And say, let me raise this flag. Let me make this country we own again. Let's make Sierra Leone better. So out of them, go Lome peace, do all kind of things, we manage for fan peace. Because the state been there in chaos, complete chaos. Everything was broken down because it was a state of anarchy, war. Somehow after the peace, everything began build up again small. And we've had 5 democratic elections. Will somebody agree with me now that those prospects of a better Sierra Leone, where do we stand with it as we look at things the way they unfold? Are we making progress? Are some of the questions that I want to ask. I think, I get a sister, we want jump inside because a lot of people seem for the wait for the first person for have a go. So, sister, you just join. I would like to let you quickly identify yourself for the purpose of the audience. And obviously, I will ask you the next question.
Paddy Johnson Cole.
Paddy Johnson Cole. Yeah. Okay. So, Paddy Johnson Cole, sister, welcome to the program. I ask everybody else to mute the microphones, please. Yeah. We get a speaker on the line. Sister Paddy Johnson Cole, thank you for calling the Den and Hour, participating in the Den and Hour, I believe for the first time. You are highly welcome. Today is a special one, my dear sister. It's the eve of independence, 60 years of independence. Now, you're not a huge stakeholder because I don't see your profile in 1 or 2 places. So what you will try for arrive now at is forget people passive opinion or reflection on 60 years of independence. Offer we an overview of your take on this entire exercise, please, if you will.
Wait, thank you, Prince, for welcoming me. Well, actually, to be honest, I don't see within with the celebrate actually, because we not achieve much in 60 years. I do appreciate, say, any anniversary, people can celebrate anniversary anyway, but this is such a big thing that as a Sierra Leonean, we like in country and like in people there isn't much to show for 60 years where we don't get. So far. You see, so to me is we get so many suffering in the country. I don't know whether you want me to go through that direction, that route now. You understand what I'm saying? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, if you came back, we want to hear you overview on the thing, reflection, nice and sweet, because there are platform. There are so many people, and I believe they all want to contribute. And we get the star guest, Mr. Alpha Emba, Chernoh Alpha Emba.
Yeah. So my view about the whole thing is this, you see. With all the, I don't know how much it's going to cost the country, you understand, for big this celebration, because it's quite a big one and money go involved, you see. But really, to be honest, you see, I'm not happy because I know so many people suffering in the country, you see. So many people, they suffer. So it can, I never feel good when at the say government, they spend money unnecessarily when they can use that money there for help poor people then. I'm not too happy about that at all. You get me? Because at least people, they suffer. They will go spend money for a celebration. Although I don't know how much it's going to cost us. Maybe sometimes they cost me anything. But if it costs me such a large sum, then to me, it don't mean anything, because we not get much for show for 60th anniversary. Actually, if Namio, I think to say, me I go be shame self for saying we don't 60, because we don't 60. You see some countries then we don't 60. They get a lot. We did not achieve. We not achieve nothing as a young for we even we not 60 years old. You get me? I think we for shame self for saying we not 60 years old, because we haven't much achieve much. Prince, make I just stop Naya for now because I just log in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ask Mr. Infajikaba for muting phone while other people they talk.
Yeah, exactly. Please let me observe some rules, please. I mean, if you not a talk, keep your phone on mute. Just basic request, please, please, please. Sister, yeah. So, like I say, let we observe the basic rules. Do ya? Let we show some modicum of respect for we other guests them. Sister Kadi Johnson Cole, well said. But quickly, let's ask you one question before I bring Mr. Barkham into the picture. Obviously, I go tend for think that you come from an era prior to all of them problems there where we see. So, in other words, you must have seen the good side. If there is a good side and bad side, I don't know whether you will agree with me. Not necessarily bad, but from an era where are they supposed to you see, as opposed to now, you can give me some perspective on that. What are the differences? What can we do?
You're quite right, Prince. There's two sides to everything in this world. Sierra Leone cannot be that bad. You get me? You see? Okay, one or two things in the way, it depends on how far back you want me for go. You see, because like the time where we they go school, you see, school was good. That time that we even look to the inter-secondary school sports.
Yeah.
We're not a big thing for we, you see. We get all things and they look forward to them with Thanksgiving service then. We get a lot of things then. With schools then, because for me, example, I take me school when me go FSSG school where I go. When you go there, FSSG school in those days when me go there, everybody want for letting picking go to that kind of school then they. You get me?
Yeah.
You see, but now learning everything was okay, you see. But like now, when you look at you go now like Freetown, you go on Wilberforce Street. The way Wilberforce Street been there, you see, not also Wilberforce Street turn now. You see, so everything don't they change. Yes, not also the way even they not also there now. You see, and then when you look at we we educational facilities as well, you see, and not particularly thing to say, well, maybe sometimes this government say that they do much, you understand it? You see, so with all respect to this government, you get me? But the education side, really, to be honest, you get me? Not to today no more, it don't go down. Education don't go down for many years now, you get me, you see? But waiting and not waiting, I refuse for accept.
You 48 hours.
Waiting me refuse. Waiting I refuse.
Can you mute your phone?
Okay, I think I need for people and come out. Continue with this that.
Waiting me refuse for accept. Waiting even during the APC government time, education wasn't that superb. Not at all. You get me? Yeah. And similarly, with this government as well, with all this free education, wait and see they don't get. You see. Waiting and refuse for accept to this government, this current BO government, whether they talk say, they not achieve everything in education. And when they always go back say, oh, you see, the other governments may do those, the other governments not responsible. No, they shouldn't be saying that the other government is responsible. That was why the other government was kicked out. Then bring on a camp for let una change things in. You see,
okay.
So they expect for the change things and not for they go back and say this other government not being do well, not being do well. The education, for me, I don't know, but I feel to say education be done bad throughout. And even now, if they say education good, now, how come the current government all them picking and not they go na state schools then? Because if they go na state schools, then get that moral standing for can't tell we say education good. But if your children goes to private school, so you cannot come and tell us that the education system is good. If you go, why you not put your pick in there? You get me? You see, so these are the sort of things where we say 60 years by now, therefore the correct things, and this government not in a power for over 4 years now, 3 years now. Therefore, don't be in a power now for do things. You see, I supported the government, I criticize APC government. You get me? But this government, in terms of what they do so now, you see, I think to say, you get me, all the one that we've been criticize APC government. Some of us would in regret. You get me? Because we not see that they spend money, or they say they spend on education. But I think they're not being planning well. If they had planned it well, all they could have done is get a pilot scheme for one area first and see how it's going to work. You get me? But they only get a pilot scheme. So they take too much load for them where they're not able to deliver plan. You get me? So for me, I am not particularly happy with these 60 years at all. That money could have been spent in a better way for other people. They let people they enjoy, and let people then get money. People don't get money for it. Chris?
Okay.
Like when
okay, I will pause you this small, but there is more time. There's more time on the show, but good perspective. People will not get money for it. They can equally save that money there or try for make provisions for people. But there's an obligation on part of government. Or so they will say. So let's call on Mr. Chernoh Alpha M. Bar. Mr. Bar, are you there, sir? Mr. Bar?
Yes, are there.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously, we've got Mr. Chernoh Alpha M. Bar on the platform as we promised, Una. And by virtue of video relay, Una can see I'm live. And Chernoh, we don't go deep into the show. We're going to warm up the floor like a warming up act. And here you are. So I want a reflection of 60 years from you end, provide a kind of perspective. And again, my understanding is you are not a fan of independence. I don't know whether I get that right or the way they construe them. So you get a view. So can you provide some perspective and reflection for us, please?
No, I not think say I'm not a fan of independence. That's not the question. The question is whether we see African countries as being independent. You don't understand. That's a different question. But every human being, one for be free, one for get what we call self-determination, and the ability for do things on your own and without depending on someone else. So on the country level, we can refer countries as independent, not just forget individuals from their own communities being in charge of their own affairs, which is one aspect of independence. But then I think we're different with many people, or the differences appear. I think that much of within the previous sister been they talk about, Kadi Johnson Cole, they talk about there's not much to celebrate, there's not much to talk about, because this hinge on the question of development. The ability of a country for run what we call an independent national economy, an economy that produces, that is based on industrialization, an economy where the export all over the world. We don't see countries that have been colonized. You look at China, you look at India, you look at places like that, and then you see, since then depart from colonial domination to now, they don't advance technologically, they don't advance intellectually, they don't advance culturally, and economically as well. Then get an independent national economy. The Chinese economy, for example, now one of the biggest or largest economies now. They contend with any European economy, they export and they produce. So many African economies, in fact, we're not going to call really a national economy in a place like Sierra Leone, in the real sense of it. There are no industries. And they talk about export of raw material, just that kind of trade there. And much of what we call trade, again, they happen between African countries. So, but it's good for also look at what we call 60 years of self-rule, 60 years since colonial officials, white administrators give power to African people. What have we been able to do with our own societies? What did not happen, in these 60 years? Has anything changed from the colonial legacy where these people inherit, and whether the indices on development, statistics on poverty, statistics on human development generally, anything we're proud of? If not, then waiting basically don't serve as hindrances to the realization of the kind of society where we all need. For example, life expectancy lower in Sierra Leone than many parts of the African continent. Women still get challenges with childbirth. We still suffer from infant deaths, under 5 mortality figures are still high. These are basically the result of the lack of social services where we require healthcare, housing, good roads, electricity, things that basically the common good of society, where many parts of the world don't even think about them, because you're there England, you're there America, in some part of Africa, you don't even think about blackout as electricity as a challenge. They won't occur to you saying or something. You can just run and just midnight and just turn you tap and pipe borne water, they run. So all them things are absent as alone. They are basically dreams now, to the extent that now boreholes, water wells, nine people they think about. You find the whole community in a one water well, more than 200 people, 500 people in that community depend on that well. We can dry out and not even clean. And mostly they see Pekin and they spend many hours trying to just get basic things like water. So these are basically the serious problems we think about the state in itself as the embodiment of our aspirations, as the instrument through which we were able channel some of these aspirations and work towards the realization and resolution of them problems there. But things then just keep getting worse from one year to the next year. Like now, many of the people will talk about nostalgia, good old days. So if you think about the 60s was better, then you see say the 70s get worse. People in the 70s go say the 70s better than the 80s. So like that. Now, you go find out, say, the 90s again with all the war, you go think about, say, light be in this society. But now, increasingly the war done, then go say there is no more civil war, but still the conditions where precede the war, where even generate the war, still don't become amplified. So,
okay.
Society
Well, say, Chernoh, I mean, very
good. We cannot talk of independence as celebration.
That's something we can go on with on and on and on and on and on. It absolutely makes sense, but I think what you have derived from there is we can look at in two folds. One was a period in which people being there for self-determined, and take things into their own hands, their own destiny into their own hands. What they make of in reflection, it is show the negatives. I believe this is what it is. We haven't developed at all, because you make examples of places like China. Just 30 years ago, they were equated to a third world country, and 30 years on, they are a superpower and the world's biggest economy, although not officially yet. Mr. Ba, I want to go straight to the point. One of the things that we don't make you famous now, every living quarter in Sierra Leone and the international community, is acts where they can attribute to something in the Western world called whistleblowing. Before I move any further, I want to ask you whether you not mind when people attribute your works or what you do, and use that adjective there if you like, whistleblower. Do you consider yourself as a whistleblower?
No, I think the word basically now, when you say what this way characterize the kind of work where the Africanist press they do as whistleblowing, you don't really deviate from the actual work that we do. We know the whistleblow, because my own understanding of whistleblowing basically is an individual. For example, you get our Honorable Ibrahim Tawa Conte on this show, from what I understand.
Yeah.
What did he do with Parliament, for example, by signaling he's part of Parliament, and you see how Parliament functions, how Parliament is operating, and you're not satisfied, then decide to raise questions of accountability. Basically, he ring the bell on Parliament as an integral member of Parliament, basically an eyewitness account of what is happening. It can happen in both ways. Either you speak out, or you decide for anonymously release certain transactions of an institution or an administration where ordinarily will not come out. So the idea of whistleblower is that the person will necessarily be an inward, somebody with an integral component of the arrangement and functioning of that. But what we do is basically journalism. Journalism is not whistleblowing. It is reporting. There are many components of it. The journalism media can entertain, can educate, can also inform society, okay? My own understanding of my work is basic. It comes from this tradition where I think the media should function, or people within the media should function as part of the thinking representatives of the society, okay? Being also spokespeople of the society in which they find themselves. That's the tradition of the press. And the tradition of the press don't change now drastically in this course of the 500 years, if we just speak abruptly, because in the past, for people who study political science, who study other things, and you get writers, the John Locke, the Baron de Montesquieu, even Aristotle, okay? Also, these are basically individuals who maybe critique society at the time, right, about what they were not comfortable with, for exposing society. So the media get different components. Then now journalism became an integral component of that particular tradition of the press. So the press, where you expand the canvas of the press, this landscape where the press, you define, say, writers are there, novelists are there, dramatists will be there. So basically, nowadays, terminologies they develop over time. People, they develop definitions, people, they develop terms and all of that. But I am basically a member of the media that I start off as a journalist, writing in newspapers. That is the tradition I've continued. Then branch out from newspapers to writing books. Basically, the books that again what I write, they are basically now a long version of a newspaper essay. That's what it is. Now you see, I try to do a critique of the democratic arrangement in Salon, what I call Democracy. My next book coming out, Democracy Betrayed. So basically, some of it deal with questions of corruption, questions of governance, dictatorships, and authoritarianism, how these three manifestations of the state entangle within itself, and they all deal with the general democratic landscape. So basically, I'm not a whistleblower. I am just a journalist, and I do investigations into conduct of government beyond the ordinary
the line between whistleblowing and a process of a journalist, and defining what a journalist supposed for stand for, waiting and stand for, and give you a historical perspective as well, going as far back as the days of Aristotle, and spreading it wide for everybody to understand. Quite necessary, because this is part of the debate that is ongoing. A lot of the things that I want to ask you, and that you can always do, you can sort of compress them, because you can go on this lengthy, digression about issues, which I really, really do appreciate, because you make it very much more interesting. Some of the things that I want to pick up, because there's a lot said, let's see whether we can unpack some of them quickly. But Fambulem, today, the eve of Sierra Leone independence, we have none other than Mr. Chernoh Alpha Mba, one of the editors of the Africanist press. We don't pull boku story about the current government, and then work not only start now, go beyond this government. And as far as we know, and evidence is there for speak to that, this brother has been doing this thing, calling out on government beyond the Julius Maada Bio government. So it's not like it's personal, although we will come to that shortly. But what they ask Kuna, let other people be a witness to this as well. Let them hear from Chernoh himself. Let them not be told. This is important to be a part and parcel of this very, very important conversation rather than an interview. Chernoh, you said a lot about press don't change. And I'm sure change in a different sense, because in one sense, it has evolved. Press journalism has evolved. The age of social media is here. Print media is still relevant, but less relevant, and social media is here. So it gives we all a kind of platform, and the middleman has been removed. So we can channel your own story and give me the possibility for talk to you as we do so tonight and talk with people. What's your view about journalism back home, the media houses back home, the journalists back home? What's your take on them?
Yeah, like for understand the media landscape in Salon, I believe every individual in the first place gets a reason how they arrive at a particular destination. There could be personal stories, there could be historical circumstances where push the person towards that. We in this current situation, for being so brief, now that we get very good journalists, we get very good, in fact, Sierra Leone, now a country where get a rich tradition of the media, okay? The media now West Africa, because of we get the first, what we call Western institution of higher learning, and we get the first university. We also get some of the first earliest newspapers in the continent, start with Day, one of the earliest, and we get one of the most prominent journalists. When you look at the archives, you see the Sierra Leone news, you see the debate when they happen within the Creole community and outside of the critique against the colonial state. We can get people like Wallace Johnson, one of the most prominent trade unionist, anti-colonial agitator, and also a journalist, use the media. So the media then serve as an instrument for expose colonial injustice, colonial corruption, colonial exploitation, because we call colonial exploitation and corruption, the loot of raw materials at the time under the colonial state, and the transfer of them that wealth to Europe, to England and other destinations. So that tradition, they still continue. Now, in modern times, I would call it corruption because of young people in the Dua. Okay, but in the past, the press defined that as exploitation. That doesn't mean there were no stealing of public resources. We look at it, see the corrupt tradition again within the councils at the time, colonial administrations, but for the most part, the transfer of wealth. So the press at the time been they agitate for a number of things. The integration of Africans into the colonial administration, for say the African people have get representation inside the colonial government. Then they call for changes in certain laws. Then they also call for independence. So you can get different newspapers then. So now, again now, and then newspapers, some been decided. Some educated Africans, they want for the part of the colonial government. They want to get into the legislative assembly. They want to get into self-government, to get cabinet. So nowadays, again, that tradition with the absence of the colonial state, now you see the press change, who side some now pro this party, pro that other party, or you get journalists again where not agree with the system, then will tell you, say, the ministers them bad, now the president don't get problem, the people are around them. You will get people again opposed to the entire system, but then get one or two people within the system who are their own friends, where then go defend them. You don't understand? For example, we get a case where when we write about the lack of payment of timber revenues, okay, you get private journalists that win a private journalist, then we're supposed to be private journalists, not to people who work for government, or the government television or government newspapers or ruling party newspapers, then go defend the individual involved. They defended the individual involved in this case because this individual is their patron, is their friend. You go write about the Ministry of Youth or the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance getting young press people within the private press where perhaps then they bankroll them. So it happens. We get that. So you get this polarized, you get this various contending interest within the media. Part of it got to do with the poverty in the country. So the poverty in the country, the stimulant to some of these corrupt client and patron relationships. So many people cannot function outside of a relationship with the state. Okay, so you find out if you know the government, you got to get somebody inside government for make sure you're able to function. Because in general, newspapers in a saloon, most of them they print 16 pages, some 20-something pages. Okay, where you sell newspaper for the newspaper price na 2,000, but they give it to the vendors perhaps for 1,500 or 1,300. So many newspapers do not print up to 2,000 or even more, say 3,000. Some they print less than 1,000. Okay, so the cost of the sales, they even do the way you sell the newspaper, the cost of the sales, they offset the cost of printing. So
but is that not in itself? Is that not itself a prelude to kind of bribery? And they become vulnerable.
Make I just that are the canceled. Some of because
okay.
If they critique the press, if they criticize the press and how the press they function, we get to also understand the conditions under which the press they operate. Then we select one or two people where under that difficulty again. Okay, 1 or 2, 3 newspapers who will single out under that difficulty. We still they try to maintain a greater level of independence, because we talk about independence now as a country.
Absolutely.
So independence as a country got to do with independence of institutions, independence of the individuals within the country as well. Their ability to live and thrive without free from this patron-client relationship, just like a country got to depend on England, IMF, World Bank. Okay, now we're not going to talk about development as our own government. You will even the president talks say they have to have a clean bill of health from the IMF to be able to function. That is dependency. They celebrate dependency as an indicator of success. Okay, so in other countries that's a laughing situation. So the same way again in trying to look at independence of the media, we got to understand the conditions and the environment under which the media they function, and the media also is suffering from the poverty in the country, because for business, the media, if you get a newspaper, that newspaper just depend on the sales of the newspaper. You're not going to be able to run the newspaper because the cost of the sales will not, the return of the sales.
You can't get the cost, yeah.
So less the cost of paying the staff.
So Chernoh, just a short answer from you on this one, which is when I see you talk, there is a stress in some of the words. And looking at it from a psychological point of view, then stress notes then they, like when it comes to social, when it comes to justice and the context in which you use them, it seems like these things are kind of personal to you. So the question there is, where do you derive the oxygen from and why are you into this? This is not like fun. This is serious. Whose this motivation come out and waiting to drive you? In other words, that's the oxygen that I'm talking about. Is it about the people, social justice, and etc.? What is it?
Well, generally, as an individual, I just find myself in a situation where I cannot accommodate injustice against another human being. okay, I find my own freedom in the freedom of the general society. Okay, so the oppression against somebody else can just immediately trigger me into questioning what can I do to resolve the situation. So that's part of it. Part of it therefore do with an orientation that makes me to see. It's difficult for talk about yourself because then it means I'm not trained with the tradition of talking about yourself. And it's very difficult because then I always want my work to speak for me. But one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I have come to find out that these levels of oppression, this poverty, these, like what we try to talk about now, the media, how can we have a media institution or a group of, how can we have a newspaper that can stand against the injustices in society? Those injustices, and they go along with the theft of the national resources, the oppression of people. How, and history now, looking through history and seeing how people will suffer from the same kind of situations also offer the sacrifices that are necessary to attempt to resolve that question. It's not like you have all the solutions, but what role can you play as an individual to create a better society, a better environment in which you want to live? For example, if you want for teaching at university now, or you want for teaching at a school, what is the salary of a teacher? So, and teachers are not even well paid. They are not regularly paid. So if you want to become a teacher, you find out, say, you definitely get you don't get choice, but if you want to remain the teacher and practice and teach, because that is what you love, you definitely get to fight for better conditions for the teacher in order for you to be able to fight. So in extension, you're also fighting for the interest of this group that you want to be part of. So what I'm saying is that your personal struggle also get for reflect the general aspiration of the country. So my motivation is the fact that it's impossible for me for just live in a situation where I see oppression, see injustice, see corruption, and I know I close my eyes.
That is it. So even the expression that you face, you know, yeah, when you say that, and that's what I was speaking to, and you've just addressed that, and many thanks for that. So you are moved by the injustices in a country or against a people, a vulnerable people. You can't stand that, and if you not speak up, you don't just feel right. But here's the thing: in the work where you do, Mr. Ba, you've done great damage. Okay, and the evidence is there. We can point to data and statistics and reaction, because there's a reactionary element as per some of the things the way you don't do. A government is, or officials of government now feel threatened by your works. I know some people may want to deny that, but the evidence is there again. The circumstances are there. The reactions are there by these officials to whom or for whom you've exposed certain things into with people then. And your publications, now they talk about generally. You are equally threatened, and these are some of the evidence then, by the same people whom you've written against, you know, with things them way supposedly for the evidence, although then they deny that's been done. My question to you, Mr. Ba, on this basis is, one, do you feel threatened? Because I'm not saying threats go to you. You've spoken about that. Some of the officials have sent you personal threats. And I think you said you've recorded those threats and they are on standby for whatever thing you decide to do. That's one. Do you feel threatened by these officials? I mean, basically, is there a component of fear in you now as per this mighty task way you don't undertake? And if you can tell me this, again, the next question what I want to jump to quickly. And if you can just summarize and quickly the issue about fear.
I know they lost sleep over the work that I do. I always try for make sure that I don't accuse anyone falsely. I have never, man, I tell you now, I have those individuals who know me, they can say this to you or anyone who has worked with me closely or from distance. I have never in my life used a pen name, a pseudonym. This is 21 years of writing. I know they ever write anything, I put somebody name there. Never. I know they ever do. And why is part of a principle for make sure say I hold myself accountable So anything that I write today, tomorrow, and not only that, I write because I want to also document my own ideas and me thinking. I train as a historian, okay? I train as a historian. I believe in history, believe, say, your work should outlive you. And I also do not want my kid or kids to grow up and begin to think about the kind of man I was, what constitutes my thinking, how I saw the world, and what I try to do to change. So I basically, that's one of the things we make at the right, for make sure I document what I do. So nobody will say not this, not that. So I have never used, why I say I've never used a pseudonym, because I stand by anything that I write, and I make sure.
So on that basis, Chernoh, you stand by everything that you write. Can you tell Fambulem what kind of precaution or method and way you can use for ensure that the information where you put out there about people are right? Tell Fambulem for me, please.
It has to be, there are multiple layers to it, but one of it is that it has to be solid proof. And I receive all kinds of information. I work with all kinds of people. People who have worked with me also go tell you, say, I'll give you one example. This is very recent. Towards December, someone floated somebody already within my circle, within even how I operate, just decided from the blues for contact me and decided to give me information that appeared to be very serious. I don't say this, but I want to say, I will just tell you how I take care. Okay. And I decided to investigate that information to find out whether the information is supposedly correct. And at the surface of it, it looked very appealing, because it's very scandalous. And then I spend time and investigate not the information first, the individual that gives me the information, because that individual is not part of, it's a new individual that just popped up. So I investigate the individual, investigate who that individual is, and the individual appear to be unconnected to establishment. So you know, go suspect and say, but then I came to find out there was a seriously highly placed individual in government, in this current government, that gave that individual what appeared to be evidence that was false. So this individual, now that I'm saying, maybe if you person to listen, you go decide for. But anyway, I investigated and I knew even how much this individual has been paid to give me what appears to be evidence that was false, which will have forced me to publish if I was just publishing without verification or investigation of the, okay. I investigate evidence. We investigate evidence.
Absolutely.
Okay. And not only me, I work with a team of people who are experts, things that we don't understand. For example, when we got this evidence of leadway trading, when our own research got into that, and we see, say, from custom record, leadway exported over 2 million metric tons of timber. And this, by shortchanging the government of Sierra Leone, they had deprived the country of over $5 billion in dollars. We were shocked. We said, no, this cannot be true. We debated that for 3 weeks among ourselves. So in the final, we wrote the article, the first article where we write. On 20 minutes to publication, I had to change both the headline and the content. Okay, because I look at the 5 billion at the time and look at the financial reports of the country. I said, no, there must be some, so we put them aside. We had to send that information to some of our colleagues who are also financial experts with customs and in Canada and other places for help we verify this. So the first article we published, we just talked about the amount of revenue that we are collected that we are not banked, not the money that they have deprived the country. So that when the publication go out, then a week later, we can verify again. We therefore check the custom records from Sierra Leone and the destination points, where this shipment then go and all that. Then we calculate again, comparing data and quality. Then we can say, okay, in potential revenues, this figure is absolutely correct. That's when we put it out now.
Okay.
So basically, there are also the methods, triangulation. For example, if you say so person don't take so money, we go to bank statistics, we go to invoices, all these publications will be published. So if we say, for example, government don't give this person, if we say somebody don't go withdraw, government don't allocate to the first lady X amount of money, before then they wire the money, there has to be correspondences from this office to that office, that office. So we just don't just look at the bank statement.
Follow the money trail.
Yeah, we look at the corresponding papers leading to the transaction. The correspondences will lead to the actual action before you look at, because the bank statement is basically the result of the bureaucratic operation. Now the end product of correspondences then translate that the end product of the action, the final product of the action. Why it's important? Because somebody can write a letter for withdraw money, then at the end they're not withdrawing. But then when you see the documents that talk about, oh, we don't allocate, this person needs so money, then the Minister of Finance writes in response to gives so money, we got to see if the money has been moved. Okay. So all those
Chernoh, just 30 seconds. Why do you think up to this moment in time, with all the documents there, these questions that I'm asking quite relevant, and they are for specific reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think up to this time, all the documents there where you don't produce, where by many means necessary, look very, very authentic? Other than that, they will have been challenged a long time ago by very powerful people that you're going up and against. Why do you think some people still, they call these documents irrelevant or fake and etc.? What you ever had a second guess why?
No, I know why. Because the point here is that, I mean, you can catch somebody in the act of doing something, they will definitely find a way to deny, or then just keep quiet, or they shy, they just retreat.
Okay.
But this is the thing: the people who are denying the evidence are not government officials. These are basically
absolutely
supporters of the government who want to explain for government. But they can no longer explain because the evidence, so they may not start by denying, and they cannot shift from that because they don't want to concede. The fact of the matter is, it deals with the partisan interest, okay? And it comes to family values, okay? We have people in our families, for example, where then, they can go joke to them because if you do bad, they will tell you there and then. But you get other people then, this deals with uncles, it deals with parents, it deals with even among siblings. There are brothers that you have who will look at you and say, hey, and they take nonsense. So if you do anything, he will tell you how it is. There are other family people who will just, play there. So it's a human nature. But the fact of the matter is that the evidence speaks for itself. Okay, for me,
it does speak for itself.
I'm amused. I can laugh while I see the way they deny. Because when they deny, I present more.
Another 30 seconds for you quickly. I want to go to something even more serious, for step up the game in the interview. And 30 seconds more, Mr. Ba. You seem for the right now the center of a storm. And yeah, that's an apt description, the center of a storm. We recently see the proposal for a cyber law bill, a proposal for a cyber law. And that cyber law proposal, it looks center because cyber law is a multifaceted thing where a country can introduce and put into law because they feel threatened by many, many things, whether credit card fraud and many other frauds, but all of them one and they're not prevalent alone. One of the key things and where you can see inside the poorly drafted cyber law is one way regarding data, communication, media, and etc. Giving you overview about the cyber law, what's your take? Is it attributed to people like you, obviously, in the media? What in your general view, Mr. Ba?
No, we got to understand the nature of the state in itself, how the state they behave. And for the most part, when you get rogue politicians in power, they definitely will invent tools of repression for always hold people them back from interrogating how governments function. And this is also not new. And the techniques of control, the techniques of repression can change, but repression goes along with governance. The state in itself by nature is violent. Governments are violent entities. That's why they have an army, that's why they have police, that's why they have jails, that's why they have courts, that's why they have a fire service. They can also choose to use these instruments of coercion and repression in the general good of the people, for protect the people. But for the most part, they do these things because they want to, for example, before I come to cyber, for just as you say, you don't have to expect anything different than what we've been presented. A few days ago, we see these riot, what appears to be like incidents of violence all over the place. Police, they beat women, random violence that you don't seem to understand what is happening, like chaos. There's this chaos in the midst of our effort to expose government. And I sat back and looked at it, being familiar with rogue regimes and their behavior all over in different parts of the world that I have interacted with people that I talk to. I posted that I hope these incidents of violence are not state engineered to create the semblance of some kind of a disorder. We will allow them to use police emergency, either than declare curfew or state of emergency, also put police presence all over the city. So what did we saw? We saw yesterday 2 or 3 incidents that people don't seem to put into context. Excuse me, this is a departure, but I think it's very important for me to use this opportunity for address, and then it brings us
absolutely. That's why we ask you this question
of legislation.
It's very important because you have to forget.
Now we saw presidential guards deliberately filming themselves.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, threatening violence against political opponents of the government. Not only violent, threatening to kill people if they try to resist against government. Okay, then we saw the police also, the Inspector General of Police giving marching orders to the armed wing of the police, not just regular police, but armed wing of the police, the paramilitary wing of the police, for someone to go out and restore order. So basically, and then along with it, somebody floated what appeared to be an audio inciting violence, and this person is anonymous. So when you take them 3 developments here in one day, I will imagine, I will be forced to think, the first thing is that, the government, if this government really concerned about this incidents of violence, whether bike riot they happen and all of that, they will not be having a party at the stadium, okay? Because when general chaos they happen in a country, what governments do, they try to maintain peace. They will be worried. But when you see bike riders in their hundreds attack a TV station, storm a TV station in front of a TV station, then go to police stations, storm police stations, storm transportation agencies, then they react to a state operation, you go deliberately say this is animated by the state, okay? Because the government not concerned about it. They were not worried because this is not independent. If they were worried, the cabinet, senior members of the government, the chief minister and the cabinet, and then some of the MPs were in the stadium having a soccer fun competition when this, on the side of it, these incidents of violence, they happen, okay? That tells you the government will say it's not going anywhere because they control it. And each of these protests will happen, with seeming protests will happen. Nobody, no shop was looted. Really significant property damage, even the police stations we talk about, apart from that accident that happened, which claimed the life of this independent bike rider. We're not a part of these bike riders anymore. You don't. So what I'm saying is that we get for look at, we get for understand, say, governments that can machinate the semblance of chaos in a country, especially where people do not begin to interrogate and ask hard questions. Because now if they are concerned, they knew they were inviting guests into the country. Yeah. And they knew that they have to put fear into the minds of people. So people will be more concerned about their security than for even ask how much is government spending to host these massive celebration, this massive entertainment celebration. Entertainment, they are entertaining themselves and their guests, which is similar to what the First Lady did. Okay, the First Lady took money from our National Treasury, invited guests, her colleague First Ladies to come to Sierra Leone. She's attested to that. Now the president, 3 years down, is repeating the same thing that his wife did. Okay, he's inviting international, his colleague presidents to come to Sierra Leone to have a feast, to have an entertainment, along with him, dinners, you know, and all of these things. And the budget goes beyond 30 billion. Okay, so they will be hosting this and spending this money when a few days ago, they were not even paying nurses, they were not paying cleaners, they were not paying doctors. But now we cannot have that conversation because there's threat, there's seeming threat to security. They don't make somebody. So you can imagine that one of these security people guarding the president or somebody from the state will be creating this audio, anonymous audio, and sending it out so that they can justify this massive police presence all over the place. Okay, to create the same. So people will be worried about their safety. They cannot even send their kids to school. Then go say, hey, this is not to affect the council. When there is really, if the state is not concerned, they will not be having these celebrations. So this tells you the governments operate differently. Rogue regimes, rogue politicians, corrupt politicians behave differently. The techniques of governance involve state violence. We therefore able to look at violence and know when citizens actually they protest and when governments engineer protest, or when government action engineer protest for making them able further contain populations. Governments do this all over the world. So we therefore try for also, along with, I think key thing we therefore try for do, we therefore try for educate with people and politically, for me, politically in the sense that they don't just have to think about elections. They don't just have to think about voting one party in and one party out. They have to think about how to understand the state, how to understand government, the character of governance, the nature and behavior of government.
I was going to ask you that exactly, but
this cyber bill,
we go still come to that, because I got one critical side where I want that, but the way you lay the case, I mean, this is beyond most people in comprehension, because this is kind of not really rocket science or sophisticated, but people not tend for the CM that kind of way they waiting at the signs, wait for look for if something of that nature is real or it's just being a state engineer sort of and just in a time when they invite big guests there for come and look at the way how you lay them again. Just weeks ago or months ago, there was no money for pay frontline health workers. We saw chaos, we saw all of this, and yet people and they troop into town for celebrations. But I hope the people and they watch and they catch up, and you make a very good point. Let's see, let me bring in one or two people and then we get quick reflections so they don't feel bored in the waiting room, if you will, sir. Mike, you want to make any contribution to this program quickly, a reflection? Brother Mike? Okay, Brother Mamadou? You want to make any reflections so far? Okay, Fambulem. I don't think say any of them guests they are ready for making a contribution and change their minds later. But just a reminder, today na the eve of Sierra Leone's 60-year anniversary. 60 years ago, the country got independence. 60 years on, we are talking about how far we've come, who's can gain the we don't make, or whether we don't make gains at all, or the gains that we will make, whether we are losing them. But today na the 26th of April, 2021, and we start guessing at the studio, none other but Mr. Chernoh Alpha Mba of the Africanist Press. Now, in the talk this evening, we expect a statement, a short reflection from Dr. Kande Yunkela. Dr. Kande, we hear from you. There are no questions, sir. We just want a reflection on the platform. And Honorable Tawa Conte, I know they signed on earlier on, but probably they're not this for talking. Maybe they might talk later. And it's just a 5 minutes, and then you can take your leave. But we will appreciate that, and I'm sure Fambul and Seth will appreciate that if we can get Una for in on this conversation, just 5 minutes of reflection. Nothing too political, just reflection on the then and now and the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, like I say again, this is not the then and now platform. The host Prince Emile Nkrumah, they come to Una on the eve of Sierra Leone's 60 years anniversary. And we ask Una for continue for shape. We know say the numbers are increasing, but we expect more. 333 in the room. If we just do probably 3 times, maybe we'll attain we objective when 1,000 people are one for view, and we'll get Chernoh Mba, and hopefully we'll attain that objective. Mr. Ba, that was the cyber law, and cyber law crime seem for generally focus on the media data collection like we talk. I want to move on to the midterm census. There's all with something, and you make a case, the last point where you make on reflection. Sometimes government does set up these kind of things, and the things that involve it's not only to Sierra Leone or in Sierra Leone, but all over the world. So then set up a case. The argument now, or the left way they argue. So the argument here is, we all know, say, or most people know, say, presidents get a right as per the Constitution for declare or make a proclamation on this census business, as per the Constitution. But there are processes and procedures to follow, not because a pronouncement, then that's the end of it. And if those processes and procedures, as we are made to understand, are not followed, especially 28 days or so after the proclamation is not gazetted, that proclamation becomes null and void. I believe it will have to be done again. But can you weigh in on this debate about this midterm census? What is this midterm census all about? In your view, is it necessary at this time? What impossibly can be, because you're a man of high reasoning and you tend for the look beyond the ordinary spectrum?
Well, the census, of course, people who don't argue for the census and argue against the census, they already state the underlying motives behind just the counting of people and just for know the population size of the country. If you ask Statistics Sierra Leone, those who work there, they think they should do a census because that's why that gives them the opportunity for work. Okay, for do their own, go around, but all of our censuses are a political tool. One of the civil society people who has been to some extent linked, whose work has been by people's estimation linked with government. I think I had Andrew Lavalley, for example, I would call his name, in argue say the previous census by 2015 was developed statistics that were not reflective of the population dynamics of the country or the population size of the country. And that, in your own view, was done deliberately by the previous government for increased representation by multiplying number of constituencies and population at the north and all of that. But this is the thing. There is no census that is going to, if we take that as the basis of an argument, there is no guarantee that this current census is going to produce any figure that will be also reflective of the entire population dynamics. It's going to be contested because it's going to miss people. It's going to miss places. The country, not even that infrastructurally developed for make we able to map out the entire size of the population. Even in Freetown, where you can travel around places to places, streets to street. Now the congestion self now Freetown now. The informal settlements, the way don't grow, we don't develop in mountains and inaccessible areas. Census people will not go there. So if that is the basis of the argument for the new census, it is basically not valid. Okay. Now, there is this general impression that the census get to do with the government, the current ruling party's determination for multiply equally. If then they charge the other people that have been used the census for multiplying the representation of parliament, they also want to equalize the same thing. That's the argument from SLPP people. I don't even read a newspaper report which says people are fearing that they want to create 2 more districts and is it 17 more constituencies in the SLPP heartlands. Okay, that could be a plausible argument. Why would somebody want to think that? Because we see how this current party in power attack parliament with police and decide for impose first a speaker of parliament. We're not supposed for the parliament in the first place. Deliberately stole parliamentary majority, hijacked the parliamentary leadership through the use of the police, and then use the judiciary for also take parliamentary majority. Now, you remove parliamentarians, 10 of them, and then decide, say, the second person when I run up, when are members of your party, you give them parliamentary majority through the court. Use the executive power for take parliamentary leadership, use the judicial authorities for also steal members, steal seats, representation of parliament from elected members. And in another area where they knew the second runner-up was not an SLPP candidate, they organized a re-election. Then try severally both sides the neighbor. You see 110. That's what we had. So what it makes sense now for say they cannot repeat this action in the next parliament. if we go to elections in 2023, or the next elections, even if the current party, based on the way the electoral map is currently structured, even if the SLPP succeed for win the presidency, they will not win parliament as well, parliamentary majority. They cannot repeat the same Abbas Bundu kind of situation twice. You don't understand? So it will make sense to have a census that will produce perhaps, which there is no guarantee that there's going to be more population in the Southeast that will generate more constituencies in the Southeast. So this is where the political argument gets in, because the politicians are the ones who advanced the need for a census. Okay, while it's the right of the president for declare a census, call for a census, but he did not even go around it the right way. He may not even talk about the procedures, the processes where if I don't go through the legality, because this government has shown that it's not committed to following the rules in any aspect of their conduct, from the way they took over the parliamentary speaker position, the way they took over parliamentary majority, okay, the way they've gone through their appointments of people, the removal of people from offices, from the way they are even running the finances of the country, is in complete violation of the laws of the country, finance laws, regulations, all kinds of things. So they are not, it is in the DNA of this government. It has been operating disregarding the constitution, disregarding the secondary legislations that support the constitution itself, or that are derived from the constitution. So debating the legality and illegality of the current government, the president, and in proclamations and in actions will be a waste of time, because they are not committed to that. They are not committed to following the rules from the get-go. From the day they took parliament, from the day where the president ordered police for going to parliament and remove and force a vote on parliament, on parliamentary leadership. That's a crisis. So they have undermined the sovereignty of parliament from the beginning. That's why the parliament is unable to function. Chaos. All we don't see in a parliament is also drama. If not to that, civil society people that tend to support the government will accuse parliament of corruption, but they cannot accuse the executive branch of corruption. They cannot speak on the corruption of the first lady, but it's comfortable for them to speak against parliament, because then they try to undermine this current parliament, because from the very beginning, then they are not comfortable with the composition of the current parliament. So we have to even understand how this government has worked against parliamentary processes. So we will not be surprised with the current drama in a parliament, because it comes back to the violation of due process. So the question then is, how will citizens understand this?
So we go to that, Chernoh. I want to let you hold your thought today, because in the end, this boils down to how citizens get to react, or how they have to be primed, if it's the reality that we're in. So now let me just see Danny briefly, if we can, sir. Sister Fatmata, mute your microphone, please. Sister Fatmata, please mute your microphone. Hello. All right. I'm not even thinking here. So, Fatmata, when you join the platform, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. Sorry about that, Mr. Ba. So what I want to say, Mr. Abewano, I know say you touch on police brutality a little bit, because the team they're so intertwined with each other that when you ask one definitely they overplay the other, or there's a subtleness of inside one particular question. But specifically police brutality, I mean, it's not so new. It's not something alien to a culture at the time from government to government, but we've seen a violence, like not witnessly, like every other day there is something, or the police will be caught brutalizing a citizen. And I don't know whether it's systemic. I don't know whether it's orchestrated, like part of the actions then, like one of them where you mentioned earlier on. But what's a general view again about police brutality in the state? Well,
the police violence or brutality, they happen in isolation of the general climate of repression, where we don't witness that the country since the Bio administration take office. Like how I say, you just have to look at how the parliamentary leadership was taken. And that now the sanctioning of state violence, So what do we see in the form of police brutalizing people, beating women, and all this violence against people? Now the result of state, now a manifestation of the general violence where the state not orchestrate. You look at the violence at Ademba Road, so there has been a heightened level of violence across the country because the climate of repression don't intensify. In the past, for example, in 20 years, we made a report for newspapers and write in the newspapers, I will tell you, say, I have experienced a more intense insult from state officials than I ever did. Okay, insults and threat to me online.
So, Chernoh, why has it stepped up to this level?
Because the point is that Madabio never went to State House with a clearly defined overwhelming majority in both rounds of the election. This was a very unpopular candidate, both within and party. Okay. Understand that the circumstances first which result into Madabio becoming the presidential candidate of the party was the result of internal party crisis, violence at the SLPP, to the extent that he was imposed deliberately on the party, because the party's constitutional arrangement was, if you don't contest one time and you lose, you cannot recontest. But the Madabio's supporters within the party, largely in the executive, decide for arm twist the party and wage war within the party to the point that they hijacked the platform of the SLPP and drove out, then crowd out everybody when I suppose for think the party. So you have a militant group within the SLPP that rode to power with a tiny majority based on also the nature of politics where Ernest Koroma introduced within the APC one, levels of the party conflict at the SLP, the imposition of candidates at the APC. So the state was unpopular. Ernest Koroma's government after 10 years everybody was dissatisfied with it. So the mass national anger and dissatisfaction with the Koroma, with the couple, the fact that there was no significant alternative, this Madabio then became by default the benefactor of that with tiny majority. Yeah. So when you come to power with a tiny majority like that, the best way for run government would be through concessionary approach, okay? And because they don't understand democracy as a work in progress, as something where you go negotiate, understanding power as a negotiated approach to power. So they decided that the same method that they used to hijack the SLPP platform for making them kind of power, they can use that at the state level. And the difference here at the state level is that there are many people, some who are even independents, who will not allow that to happen, because if you allow that to happen, it means the stability of the country and the progress and peace of people will be at stake. So people are going to see it and they are going to expose it. So that is why all of us then became interested in intervening and exposing the facade of the regime, both in its so-called commitment to corruption as a veil to just clamp down on people that they are not actually really committed to fighting corruption, because they are actually engaged in mass-scale corruption that we have not seen, innovative methods.
So, Chernoh, quickly,
so that lead to the violence. That lead to the violence because they cannot.
Equivalent to like state capture?
Well, it's just the nature of not a state capture, because the state hasn't captured. They don't get the capacity for capture because they cannot capture. Basically, they want to govern through fear, through psychological terror. That's the thing. That is through violence, and the violence now will make people by nature not want this argument back and forth. Insult, they can insult you into silence. They can threaten you to silence. They can intimidate you into silence. So if they cannot, they can also arrest you and incriminate you and try to put you in a jail, like you have the Camarembas in prison. You had Paulo in prison on charges they cannot, so you see them bulldoze parliament and decide to impose a speaker. They want to rule by force because they don't have a majority and they don't know how to go around canvassing compliance. They want to exact compliance and support for their policies through violence and through force. If in parliament, they have to pass law through violence. That's what you see with their effort to do the proclamation and the resistance from parliamentarians, because they want to just use terror at every level, That's what they are doing. Now they want to have a feast. They want to have a celebration. They cannot have a celebration with the people joining them. They have to put police on the street so they can have a party with the president's colleagues. Just so so the government is so unpopular, and it wants to force people to comply. And because they cannot have people, it's not a military regime. People with new advent of technology, new deliberation of the instruments of mass communication. So they are doing force, everything by force, and now it's not working, because in a new age we get a population, 85% of it is young. This population, they're in conversation with people all over the world. Okay, so with their cell phones, they can undercut government's legitimacy by saying, well, president is a lie. They can go online and just Google. Like you say, you've paid.
Yeah, before you know,
Japan, somebody can just Google.
Chernoh, you talk about policies. I wonder what more span policies quickly, because you did mention policy. So what we do know about policies is like policy not a knee-jerk reaction, not to based on opinion, but rather the statistics. And we don't see many policies, of government. It looks like certain policy they fail, because if they filter down to the people and not get effect, then policy they are not effective at all. They were not well thought out through. What's your view on policy about this current government, please?
Yeah, that is what we are talking. It's basically the policy. When you develop policy, you have to incorporate public opinion. Public opinion is crucial to the development and shaping of public policy. Public policy is also designed in response to public aspiration. So if you don't come to a situation, I would say you with a tiny image, you're able to negotiate, you're able to give concessional approach to power, and you have to force your way out, then you also deprive yourself of the meaningful voices in society, because out of this public speaking, public engagement, sensible leaders in power will harness public opinion and decide to develop policies or programs in response to the aspiration of the people. But you cannot use police and executive authority and terror, state terror, to force people to agree with what you want to do. It's not going to work, because in the final analysis, people will definitely question the sincerity and the objective of governance, because the objective of a government, therefore, fulfill the common goods of the people, to provide services. So if you come to a situation now where everything has to be a fight, say your approach to governance is faulty. You cannot have people challenging every decision you've made is because you have not consulted with them. Okay, like now, for example, you have a situation where you want to proclaim a census. There's a procedure of going through that. You don't follow the procedure. And then people raise the objection to that kind of approach. This is not how government functions, because you're just thinking force has to be the only way. And now you summon parliament automatically for appear. Then you also do the consultation, because you think by consulting, you will be having a contrary opinion or somebody's input that might shape your intention and your objective for which you conceptualize the policy in the first place. So because you don't want to shape that, for make it reflect the general aspiration of this, that's what democracy, all shades of opinion might not be incorporated into, but they might count in terms of how the final policy or decision is made. But if you decide, say, you exclude all of them, then you will have the majority opposed to the policy. And it's not going to, and for making it work, you can just use police, because you get violence. The state get violence. So because you cannot use your brain, you cannot think, the next thing you resort to is terror. To terrorize people into compliance. Then that becomes dictatorship. So then you begin to also blame the people for not allowing you to work, because democracy is negotiation. It's conversation. It's never by force or by decree or by executive authority only. So now these are the problem now. You have parliamentarians questioning and saying, when all what they want is to have their views and their opinions added into the debate. And then you go also look at, you might disagree with somebody, you might not like them, but they have meaningful input that will serve the interests of the state. For example, you hear the NGC has been talking about constructive opposition. They're helping government to suggest. And so these suggestions, you might not even say I've accepted it, but deep within you, you might change particular ways that you want to do things, to reflect, to pacify. So pacification is basically what astute leaders do, but leaders that are very dumb and that are very, they have a passion to just impose their will on the people, okay? They don't care. They don't even know how to negotiate policy. So in the end, they develop laws for themselves instead of laws for the society.
So let me ask you,
laws are not made for society, or policy is not for society, it's going to be rejected.
Thank you for the articulation. I mean, you break this down for even the layman deep inside the village for really understand. Yeah, there are little jargons in there and terminologies, but in the end, if you follow, you will really catch the trail, because it's like you're much more like kind of lecturing, if you like. But here is the thing, with all of that said, the hope and aspirations of the people lie in the very parliament, because they cannot go to the executive, they cannot go to the judiciary. By the Afrobarometer report perception, these institutions, including parliament itself, are very corrupt institutions. Not me saying that, the reports are out there. But one of the last places where the people in the Hopo side and send everybody for go represent the various constituencies inside democracy, we see this eyesore will happen where you don't articulate very well. In terms of all waiting, you don't see. Where does the hopes and the aspirations of the people lie? Because there is plenty of disappointment right now in the mindset of Sierra Leoneans. It's like, where can you turn? Hence, we've been talk about conscientizing the people and preparing the people for understand. Break this down for us again. Where should the people turn? What do they need to do?
Before we talk about what is who done an Afrobarometer, the local allies and anything, and they make we talk about, for example, what do we mean by parliamentary corruption? Okay, and how parliamentary corruption they happen. By virtue of the position, parliament, of course, is supposed to be independent. It's supposed to be very powerful. Governments cannot spend money without parliamentary authority. But then much of what we call parliamentary corruption is induced by cabinet, is induced by the executive branch of government. For example, if you get appointment, you get a finance estimate, for example, the budget regarding how government intend for generate money, how they intend for spend money, then they go to a parliament. If some of it does not make sense, then some MPs are seduced by either bribes or whatever. So it's induced by the executive members of government, where one get either an appointment approved or a particular bill, passed through parliament, or a particular interrogation regarding an oversight arrangement was supposed to happen, the way it's supposed to happen, not happen, then the MDA, people in that MDA or government ministry decide for compromised members of parliament. So this is how Washington can report about parliamentarians are taking supposed bribes, or they're induced by, they are just approving appointments without vetting these appointments. And people think, say, perhaps some of it has to do with bribery. If that is the case, then we have to know that these bribes also are coming from the executive branch of government. So basically, the executive branch of government disables parliament. And the current parliament now is not just being disabled by some of these inducements to corruption that we talk about in the forms of executive bribes to parliamentarians, but already from the beginning, the sovereignty of parliament was affected by the police invasion of parliament and the imposition of a parliamentary speaker, which means that the ruling party in itself decide for command parliamentary majority by use of executive power and use of judicial, through the use of the judiciary. So in that case, in some instances, even if opposition party members decide for vote against a particular proclamation or bill or decision of the executive taken to parliament, they will just be on record of having opposed that particular legislation, but they cannot basically change it, because there are other things again. In our parliament, it's so structured that members of parliament from ruling parties cannot even vote against their members. They might be accused of anti-party activity, and the law allows it for parties to recall their members from parliament. They can punish their own members for failing. Tawa might give you a testimony of some of the struggle. Some of it he cannot say publicly, I'm sure. But we've had that situation where parliamentarians might not agree with their party's policy when that party is in power, but they cannot vote against it because they might either be accused of anti-party activity, they risk even being suspended, they risk becoming backbenchers. We saw Givao was forced to apologize to Parliament. So these legislations where make even individual MPs they are controlled by the party instead of the people, the constituents. So it makes them incapable to move independently because their loyalty becomes the party, because the party has a hold on them through the allocation of party symbols. And not only that, the standing orders of Parliament also precludes parliamentarians from standing against their parties. People in parliamentarians will share that experience with you regarding, it's different from here where you have perhaps Labour MP might vote against, policies for a Labour government because they will look for my constituents. They care about the constituents. Or the US, you have Republicans voting against a Republican decision, a Republican bill, Republican legislation. They can explain it that it's not in the interest of their constituents. It's not like that in Sierra Leone. So if the party no go remove you, they might deprive you of the party symbol. Okay? So few people will say, I don't mind losing the party symbol in the next election, but again, I go vote in the interest of my country and in the interest of my people. Very few. And in this case, we've seen Tawa, Honorable Tawa Conte becomes exceptional in the case that he is resisting the party's control and the party's dictate on how he should function as an MP. And you see, you don't even get the support of the party. Okay? So these are some of the things. So we therefore understand, I think the struggle is how we therefore make with public institutions, the institutions of governance, independent from the police to the Human Rights Commission to the Ombudsman's office to the National Commission for Democracy. Now you don't hear about it even with these challenges happening. So all these different facets of the state, of the governance structure, the PPRC, you see the compromise of the PPRC, that's a different case, the National Electoral Commission. So until we have a situation where what you call the democratic institutions or the institutions of governance are themselves structured in a way that they can be independent of the executive arm of government, is going to be a problem. Where the judiciary is going to be independent of the executive arm of government. In some parts of the world, they've been able to arrive at that point by making sure people get elected into judicial commissions, into judicial positions, and they serve a particular term of office. So which means then they get security of tenure. If government can go, their salaries, because some of these people, again, in these commissions, for example, you get PPRC commissioner that's appointed by the president. So he might be a sympathizer or a supporter or in some cases member of the ruling party. So when an opposition party get problem, that PPRC that should mediate will intensify the problem. Maybe the problem, the division within that opposition party serves the interest of the ruling party. So the PPRC will deepen the confusion by even ruling in a way that will allow the thing. And you go to court again, the court will rule in a way that furthers the division, that cripples the leadership, in a way that it will enhance the ruling party in power, will make the opposition ineffective. Okay? And in that case, then you find out that why is the people in these institutions doing it? Because they know if that government, if that party they come on power, it means they will lose their jobs. Losing their jobs will mean they will lose their salaries. Each of these commissioners are paid, some of them 60 million, 70 million, 80 million, some 100 million a month. So if their salaries are 100 million, where are they going to get a job in Sierra Leone that will earn them that salary? 70 million, 60 million, apart from that political appointment. So it means they are not basically protecting the government or the constitution, they are protecting their jobs, their paychecks. So we have to find a way to have security of tenure for some, democratic institutions. We also got to revisit the question of salaries in the country. Salaries, because people's access to good paying jobs depend on their relationship with the state. I think they say something, but you are muted. Prince, I think you're muted.
Yeah, many thanks for that. Which I'm try for say, basically, we cannot bring you come, we not touch on things in way. Basically, things that we don't talk about are very close to your heart, but more things than we don't touch on, we don't cause division in the country. Now, the economics and corruption, everything we'll talk about is embedded inside, but I want to be specific a little bit. I want to let you give me an account of presidential impress and what they mean and how is it being used in tandem with the Finance Act law.
Yeah, that's a crucial question, because the president came out and say he is the president of Sierra Leone, and if he's traveling, the state get the responsibility for take care of him. Okay, that is of course a valid point, that we elect leaders and then with an expectation that they can function but at the same time they cannot treat the national treasury as their own bona fide property, their own personal account. Okay, there are standard rules of DSA. For example, the UN standard, they will tell you $500 maximum, and that might include your payment for hotel. These governments, even their appointees, their political appointees, we have published letters in which we saw, they will say DSA UN rate plus 45%. Okay, they give UN rate plus 45% for a country with a broken economy as ours, is a donor subservient economy. Not only that, a heavily indebted country will get huge burden of debt, that way they increase and multiply by the year. Okay, we have a situation where public officials, mostly political appointees, when they travel, they enjoy DSA, daily subsistence allowance, at a UN rate plus 45%. So now the president, because they say this thing is legal, if you're traveling, you get access to it. So he takes hundreds of thousands of dollars in the name of he is entitled to impressed. So what we noticed in our investigation is that there is a consistent pattern of using international travel and the payroll as tools for divert public money in the name of legality to the private possession. I don't want to say even private accounts, to the private possession of public officials. And the president is number one in the use of this operation. He's in the lead in this operation. For every trip that he has taken and that he goes along with his wife, and both of them stay in the same hotel, he has not taken less than $50,000 for every trip. And when his wife goes along with him, the wife also takes from the same travel account, which is supposed to be the presidential travel account, half of the amount taken by the president. For example, if the president take $60,000, the wife will take $35,000. If the president take $50,000, the wife will take $25,000. This is different from the money that has been allocated to the wife in our own account. This, we are talking about the presidential local and overseas travel account. There is an account that is set up in the central bank, which every president uses. That account is used to fund the travel activities of the president, both within the country and outside of the country. Basically, this is the account that they should use to buy tickets and also for his travel interest. Now, the president, we pray, for example, he went to Japan, he withdrew $270,000. He went to Lebanon and withdrew on one transaction, $410,000 cash. This is after the expenditure on tickets. These are the pocket money. So in that trip, the president had $91,000 as his own personal interest. The wife has $37,000, more than $37,000. So both of them, in between them, they get over $120,000. And they are all going to spend the night in the same hotel room. And this trip is 5 days. And interestingly about, for example, Japan, the president's protocol arrangement has been made by the host government. So And the rule is, if you take 10,000 as interest, you go abroad. When you come back, you should retire the remaining balance. For example, if you spend 8,000, you come back, you for return the 2,000 to the bank. So when you look at the record of the president, this current president from 2008, for example, in the Lebanon case, they took out over $1 million, supposedly paid for aircraft, supposedly, you know, but in cash alone, nearly $500,000. When they came back, they returned $12,000. And 5 days later, they will send someone else to take from the account $200 million, which is $20,000. So both the $12,000 that was returned plus $8,000 was taken, so like you pretend they don't return the money, they go take more than what if you don't return. So there is this consistent, some of these also is cash. For example, after this program, we're going to release, we just spent the last, me and my colleagues spent the last, since this morning to aggregate amount of cash withdrawals by the First Lady alone, not from the Impresto. This is basically money that was given to the central bank account of the First Lady that has been, we don't take cash, because so far we only publish details regarding 2018. We will not publish 2019, 2020. So today we just said, you know, what can we do? We let us release details of the cash withdrawn from the First Lady's account, private account, personal account in the Bank of Sierra Leone for 2018, 2019. What we found, we will aggregate number of First Lady Young withdrawal, it's close to 10 billion, 9 billion, some hundreds. Okay, that is, if you check, that is about $1 million in cash withdrawals, taking cash. This is not money used for, supposedly used for furniture, used for all of this. And they will tell you this, perhaps if you say this is impressed, okay, how can you use impressed in that fashion? Then there are no records to show where this money went to, what you did with it, no records of reasons for withdrawal. You cannot withdraw some in 200 million. As we finish this program, we're going to publish that without even writing. We just put in the, because now you find out that when sometimes you write these analyses, we are drawing our own. Sometimes we put this thing out, say, let's put the data out and see what people. So when people come to the Facebook and begin to comment, and so we aggregate to see how people understand these numbers and figures. So to answer you, basically, we have noticed that this government invent what we call innovative mechanisms to steal public money without being noticed. And one way they do it is by international travel. The other method is by frequent and massive cash withdrawals, which nobody can trace. Okay? We're still investigating where some of this cash is. Some of it is out, some of it is within. And interestingly, anyway.
Well, I mean, we're interested in that. Why did you decide for shy away? And I suppose
the point is that because when
will we ever know who side the money they are laid on?
When you withdraw,
exactly.
Because for example, when you travel with $200,000 to Japan, $207,000 or $100,000 to Japan, then you track presidential expenditure in that trip. And you find out almost everything has been catered, and you spend just 3 days, and then you return. There is no record of retirement of these remaining balance of these funds. Then the question is, did you leave the funds in Japan, or have you brought the funds back? Where are they? Are they in your house in the bunker? Do you have a safe where you keep this money in your house? So these questions are what we are getting to, basically, as we go along. But so when we throw this information out, we're basically trying to see whether people by themselves will be able to see what we've already seen. And we keep showing it bit by bit. For example, how you go explain 1 million cash withdrawals from a government account run by the Office of Funds? By the way, the account in itself is illegal. But you have this illegal withdrawal back, illegal removal of the money that is not conform with the rules. So when you withdraw cash, you cannot trace it. As opposed to now, money paid to AA enterprises as furniture, in future, somebody can say, let's bring AA enterprises to ask them, how much furniture did you sell to these people? Where's the evidence? Where's the furniture? And then you can all go further for probe A enterprises, then transactions from their own accounts for C, where they wired money to.
So when you say that, Chernoh, are you implying that in the future, after they will have left power, that there's a possibility of some kind of inquiry into how these monies were spent? Is that what you're implying?
Well, the government itself talks it and they investigate. I mean, the Anti-Corruption Commission did promise people of an investigation. Then in between, in the middle of in the process, the president came out and said the wife is not guilty. So basically, that is an unwillingness for probe into some of these financial, misconduct and crimes as they are. This unexplained use of public finances, for lack of a better word. So somebody will have to demand to know exactly how much money has been withdrawn from the central bank.
The SEC boss say he will investigate the office of the First Ladies under pressure, supposedly from the Africanist press, then publications.
Yes, but now the president and the Minister of Finance don't already say. The Minister of Finance issued a statement in which they did not deny this transaction. They said it's normal. In fact, they claimed, say, now 1% that the money given, they have the right to allocate money to the First Lady under a prerogative that does not preclude them from giving 1% to, non-budgeted, what they call an off-budgetary expenditure. But even at that, if that is the case, they are required by law to present the expenditure to Parliament for approval. And parliamentarians did not know about this until we brought it out. Because
absolutely, in 2 weeks. Because I think I get a conversation on a platform I go recently when they try to quote the law. And I was saying exactly what you're saying, because somewhere I'd read it or I'd listened somewhere, in which you need, yes, entitlement, but parliamentary approval, or Parliament need to know, I think in 2 weeks.
Yes. Know about that. And not only that, Parliament not even know, Parliament not approve of them. Then not only that again, the 1% they are claiming, the money they allocated is more than even money is allocated to other ministries. And we intend for sure that a couple of days from now, we're going to publish a comprehensive analysis of allocations that will include allocations received by the First Lady, allocations received by, for example, Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare, ministry in several ministries. So people will see whether the First Lady's expenditure, allocations are actually less than other ministries. But how can you explain a situation where the First Lady has more money than the Ministry of Information, or the Ministry of or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Yeah. Obviously, we fast spent into this program, but we still get almost 400 people still tuning for tell you how much interest people get in your works and waiting you actually get for say, because you're a prime guest. So maybe we can attest to the other question there in short burst, but feel free for digress if you want to. Recently, you published something, and I believe it was just a snapshot of the First Lady, where you say something like, I think I just saw it in passing. So because there is plenty of fake news now and you get for pay attention. So I might ask you this straightforward, in which the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Mrs. Fatima Jabibio, is the First Lady where in foundation they benefit from the coffers of government. If that was your take out there, will you please explain for Fambul and let we understand, including myself, because I'm a bit lost. What's wrong with that?
I think we don't put out a massive ton of information that some of the details get lost in the process, which is why you notice for 3 weeks now we have not even published anything. Yesterday, I think was Sunday. For 3 Sundays now, we haven't released new information, because we want to try to see how the volume mode on release sink in. Yes, apart from these illegal allocation that we talk about, where the office of the First Lady or the wife of the president has no right to receive public money, we also notice that there's an account run by the Mada and Fatima Bio Foundation, held by the Guarantee Trust Bank, Okay, we don't even publish the details of that account, the account number and all of that, and highlight how this account, the First Lady even wrote letters asking for support for the Hands of Our Girls campaign, especially the launching of the free sanitary pads campaign, where she was asking businesses and institutions of government as well for donate money into supporting the Hands of Our Girls campaign. And then,
is there anything wrong with that asking, Mr. Bar?
No, we are not talking about well, that is the thing. If you have a foundation of that nature, you are allowed to raise money, but also any money raised in the name of Sierra Leone or Sierra Leoneans.
Okay, that's the technical difference.
Okay, yeah, that's the technical difference. But here is the case. This money was raised in the name of the Hands of Our Girls campaign. There are already 2 government accounts set up for the First Lady, one in the Central Bank, the Bank of Sierra Leone, and one at the second one at the local commercial bank. So you will expect that if these monies are paid, donated by any business organization, say for example, AfriCell, Mercury International, or all of these other businesses that are parading around with the First Lady, they give money, that money should be paid to the local commercial bank or the government account set up for that purpose. But in this case, supposed donors, we are directed to pay the money to the account of the president and the wife, the Mada and Fatima Bio Foundation. And we also publish letters showing examples of people who paid 50 million, some 100 million to this account. And that account holds more money than the money we're talking about in the central bank. And then we have tracked the transactions in that account. We have not published the bank statements of that, which we intend to do as we go along. Also, there is no evidence that the money received in the Guaranteed Trust Bank, and this is, I'm talking about, this is as far as last week, there's no evidence that that money was transferred to the First Lady's account set up by government, either at the local commercial bank or the Bank of Sierra Leone. So which means that the money went to the private use of the foundation.
Okay, Chernoh. So there was also another issue about the First Lady's bank account, I think with the National Bank of Sierra Leone. So something about accounts.
Bank of Sierra Leone, that are different. By the way, we are talking about 3 accounts here.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting lost in terms of accounts, like private, Fatima and Mada Bio Foundation account and Bank of Sierra Leone account.
We have listed, we have so far at minimum identified 4 accounts associated with the operations of the First Lady. One only now we don't publish on so far. Details of one now we don't release. And that one is the one held by the Bank of Sierra Leone. Okay, that account was set up in June 2018. With the first check was 2.98 billion leones under opening with the first allocation. That, by the way, was more than the money received by the Social Welfare Ministry in 2018, and more than the amount of money that was allocated to the Minister of Information in 2018. I can tell you for that one allocation, no more. So you will come to see that that account is illegal. It's illegal to set up a government account for the wife of the president at the central bank. A second account also run by the office of the First Lady was set up a month after this June account at the local commercial bank. And that account also received government money. It also received money donations from NGOs in Freetown, because you cannot donate, you cannot deposit ideally in the central bank account, and money where government can give as a budgetary allocation, just like they will give a ministry or a department. That's why they set up that account. This other one now is one who say they receive donations. Now, if you then and now want to donate to the First Lady, they can take it to the local commercial bank and donate and give money. So that's second account. The third account is the private account of the foundation, which is held by the Guaranteed Trust Bank, private bank, GTB, in Freetown. There is another account in the name of the mother, these JMB Women and Associates, which also receives money, some from,
Okay, wow. You think, say, it's a deliberate attempt, you know, yeah, at deceit, you know, like trying for meander the trail. So it would take somebody we dedicate time and resources, because na high level thing. And only people like who are able to arrive at which one arrive. So other than that, a lot of people will have been in the dark. So do you think it's a deliberate attempt at misleading the general public?
It's just an effort to use the state to divert public funds, to use the position of the president to enrich themselves. Because now, for example, if you write a letter to a businessman promising that, asking them for donations with the promise that you can get 10 tickets to attend the presidential dinner, and those who pay first will be on the first row, will be on the front rows. So you see, that's like peddling influence. It's a corrupt act.
Yeah.
It's using the influence and position of the president to rake money from businesses. Because ordinarily, nobody will donate to the first lady if they were not president and wife of a president. So that's using the presidency and the status of being the president and wife of a president in a way, is legalized extortion. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just not ethical. It's not like
there's a whole range of issues there. Issues of, in plain simple terms, you call it corruption. But like you said, questions of ethics, moral issues, and issues of business, using the state as a business, as an effort to accumulate wealth. And because that is why the First Lady was adamant in saying she was not a recipient of public funds, and was even challenging the public to present evidence of.
Yeah, Chernoh, I want to ask you on that basis, I mean, you've inflicted a lot of damage. I mean, it's out there. By Western standard, any government will have collapsed, or they will have voted them out of office, or no vote of confidence, and etc. I do understand that on the own side, it's different. But with all them denial and they previously, and having forced them for accept, which position are they in now? It's like they just kind of give up and say, okay, whatever. What do you think?
No, in the first place, I want to correct the fact that it's not a damage. I think we don't do right by the people of Sierra Leone and the country.
It's damage.
Yeah, I feel. I know.
For the people, because that's how they see you as a hero, and they're all over the chat room. But to them, it's a damage to them, because they expect.
I think they have done more damage, and they keep doing more damage to the country. Even now, they're doing the damage. Ask yourself how much money is being spent to bring in guests, to entertain them, and parade them around. It's not just coming at the expense of the treasury, it's coming at the expense of the freedoms of people, the ability of people to move around in peace, to go about their daily business. Now the entire central streets of Freetown you know, what you call cordoned, you know, encircled. Nobody is allowed to use them tomorrow because we have foreign guests. They don't want these foreign guests to see the reality of the people. They don't even want, they want to present a calm environment, an orderly society, a very benevolent regime. Okay. And in the midst of poverty, in the midst of suffering people who are not paid salaries. And we are also looking at the expenditure associated with this. And we hope that we will be able to present the evidence of how much has been misused by the government in this entertainment.
Yeah, so there's a treasure trove, and people should expect.
So
we round up now. Mr. Bah has done exceptionally well, you know, here within time.
So we are not doing any harm to them. I think they are doing more harm. One will expect that if now listening government or leaders who are considerate, they will definitely calculate how they intend, what kind of fanfare they will have, especially in the midst of a financial crisis. But the president has no conscience when it comes to misuse of public funds, because how will you spend out of the travel account $3 million in a year when the entire world was on a lockdown in COVID in 2020 alone? How will you withdraw $1 million and from the central bank and go to Lebanon at the time of crisis without explanation?
All right, Chernoh.
You know? So these are the people that make a conscience. They have no conscience. I think that is what is the damages. The damages we are dealing with individuals who have no conscience, who don't have no they don't get any sorry heart for the people then that is what is, I think, for me, very serious, because I think I keep thinking about the psychology of people who govern. What kind of mindset, what is the psychology of this kind of governance? But then I am reminded, I keep telling myself, you are going to be the casualties of your own logic of governance in the final analysis, because people are going to hold people responsible.
Yes, Chernoh. Fambule, we wrap up, and like I've been saying, the man has done us all an enormous favor in the service of nation. There is no if and buts about that. And he continues to do that by making the rounds on social media, keeping us informed. As we wrap up, I want to touch a little bit, or I want to touch a little bit about specifically the social, because we talk about all of that. I think we've covered almost all of that, but the structural iniquities where you talk about is so prevalent that the head of state, as by your measure, lacks empathy for his people. But now we want to present himself as that kind of benevolent leader to the outside world by entertaining them on the 60th anniversary when the people are deep down in poverty. Everything almost has dropped. The question I want to ask Mr. Ba is frontline health workers is compact. Frontline health workers, especially the incident in Chernoh, where frontline workers were not paid. The IMC, so-called $400, where are we? $400 million. Where are we with this IMC? Because a lot of people confused. They can send me questions. Where are we with this? One moment, the first lady down said it already in a bank. The next moment, you understand, say, not just eligibility. Eligibility was construed as we don't win them. Where are we? Please help for
the quantity.
How much?
Yeah, how much I to give?
Well, I think
Yeah, just use my ball.
Mr. Suma, will you mute your microphone, please?
Oh.
Mr. Suma?
Yes, sir. Sorry, my apologies.
No worries at all, sir. That's all right. Yes, Mr. Ba.
Of course, we know say the MCC, government don't use them a lot as a slap on we faces as citizens, because each time we talk about pervasive corruption in the administration, misuse of public funds, and the climate of repression, then quick for point to the indices of the external actors, where the we tend to score them high. But I have said for the 2 years, or almost running to 3 years, that with the exception of how the discussion is now collectively changing with people's input, because not to we no more, Africanist press don't do this. There are multiple of voices across the spectrum, including within the opposition coalition. The opposition that is now coalizing is trying to do with the involvement of this kind of conversation that you're having here, including me, including all different actors, other kinds of platforms where people are having this conversation, independent actors on their own, leading the people to think and get conversation around waiting, how to hold government accountable, don't help we for build some kind of contending narrative around questions of governance, questions of accountability, transparency, to the point that now, from what I believe and what I know, international actors themselves will have to consider people's voices in their engagement with local politicians. So, and diplomats operate differently. Their interest will be there, but also their interest can only be guaranteed if the government of the day has the popular will of the people. And by increasing development happening now, every individual has a concern, has to be concerned. Now, what to make the MCC thing, I think, very interesting for people to understand, this government, they canceled the mining agreement of an American company.
Mining.
Yeah, we published a guest article recently in which somebody was talking about how that decision is a hindrance, perhaps, to Western investment, to foreign direct investment to Sierra Leone, including US investment to Sierra Leone. And MCC, by encouraging a climate of good governance and transparency, they are also providing a good terrain for make any US investment able to thrive in Sierra Leone free of the bribery, the environment of bribery and corruption. So if that case alone can be used as an example, there is every reason why what you call foreign direct investment therefore approach or therefore be very difficult for attractors for this government. And apart from this fanfare that's happening now, really we have not had any individual of stature that has visited Sierra Leone. Truly, with all this travel, now the government is forcing an event on the country for pretend that, oh, after all, the president is known because he has traveled to these places. But this is the first time they are forcing this event in a period of serious crisis. Yeah. So what are they trying to arrive at now that? I think if we continue to amplify these citizens' voices, what it does is that it provides a contending narrative to the state. Because outside people, they know they talk, they know they're able to articulate and show evidence of different from what in the government they show, then the government's word becomes the byword, okay? The only verdict. But now when citizens are collectively speaking out, as we are now trying to do, or we have been doing, and we allow that for develop into a national conversation, into a holistic conversation that challenges the narrative of the state, then nobody is going to ignore.
So Chernoh, can we relate that back to the cyber law proposal? Because probably the governments, they read far ahead and know this contending narrative in Africa empowering the people.
Looking at the Africanist press example, I have never seen a situation in Sierra Leone where the press appears to be, there are few exceptions. You can single out Standard Times, Awareness Times, The Nationalist, like that, few that appear to be, and the Times and all of few marginal and going through difficulties. But when you look, for the most part, they cannot touch the Africanist press publications in the sense that some of it has to do with the fear that there are consequences. Some of it has to do with the fact that the government don't cage the media. And part of the thing is they thought by encircling the media space, especially what they call the traditional media space or the old media space, the newspaper, the radio, the television, they can have conversation about what we are writing, but they cannot even, in some cases, involve us directly in the conversation, which is very unusual. So I not ever see them in the last, in 20 years, this is the first time I'm seeing almost a passive allegiance or active allegiance of the large sectors of the media with the state against questions of citizenship. Okay, questions of citizenship. So wouldn't that mean that the government may feel, say, by so doing, they can succeed to remove the Africanist press from the conversation?
Absolutely, absolutely. By leaving it said from the beginning of the conversation, the cyber law.
They say so that social media, many people talk no more than social media after all, I just talk.
Yeah, I just
only
talk.
For them to realize now that the instruments of mass communication, this new media, is more potentious than what they think, because now you can make an audio in London and within 5 minutes, it is all over the country. You can make a video in 5 minutes, it's all over the world. So now you see there's even effort on the part of the government having woken up to that reality that they've ignored a crucial element, then don't begin to form their own.
Absolutely, I was going to come to that.
They don't begin to form their own. Even someone said they are starting a weekly column, just like we will publish, so they try to duplicate what they do with their own online platforms and all of that. So the state is now trying to catch up, which is good because
then the conversation continues.
Citizens, their own independent actions.
Yeah.
So nobody they able to control information nowadays. So you can. So what they are trying to do, I have said, they are going to be victims of that law, because in 1965 they brought the same SLPP under
Riot Order.
Albert Magai proposed the Public Order Act. The Public Order Act was not just designed to cage journalists; it was also designed to muzzle the right to assembly, the right to association, the right to information, the right to free speech. But then 2 years later, they lost the election. So Checker Stevens.
Yeah, absolutely, Chernoh. Let's leave that historical aspect because that's quite true.
No,
And
it's good for us to say that.
with that.
Then,
but just
again,
a quick one on that, Chernoh. A quick one on that. I don't want to lose my thoughts on that. Obviously, you've nailed the press with few exceptions. We're being part of the conversation. But are you astounded again by the silence of the interreligious community, or are they don't box them up and the CSOs? Weigh in, please.
No, I think the civil society space, not specifically, I hate to enter into religious conversations by nature of it. I leave religious leaders with their own congregations, okay? So the active civic society space, is what is interesting. By October last year, the civil society, large sector of the civil society was active following the McCain standoff between what appeared to be members of the Poro Society and the indictment of the former president. Many of them were calling for and condemning the incidents. They did not condemn the riot, the incident that led to the deaths of 5 people. Many of them never condemned the police, but then they were condemning the standoff mounted by members of the Poro Society in the name of fighting to stop corruption. Then all of a sudden, we have published this barrage of evidence, and none of them, with the exception of few, I think Marcella spoke about it on radio that I had, but apart from that, I am yet to hear the voices of some of those supposedly independent civil society people who are actors against corruption in the past. They are now silent, pretending that this is not even happening. They are now talking about census. Yeah. They are not talking about the need for census, but they cannot talk about the need to carry out a holistic investigation to prove whether these evidences are the case or not. In fact, they are supporting the government's narrative that this is not evidence of corruption, even though parliamentarians have written to the finance minister, to the bank governor, inviting them to parliament or inviting them for an explanation regarding these disbursements.
Chernoh, two final questions.
But I have said in the past that many of them are also on payrolls. Okay, I have said that before, and in the chief minister's account that we published, you can find the details of some of the civil society people. Hawa Samai, for example, was given a contract to. So these are examples, and you find these evidence. If you look at the Ministry of Finance, you will see people being paid in the name of advertisement, in the name of consultancy. You saw recently Chernoh coming out to challenge corruption in the Ministry of Basic Education, but he was also an appointee of government. And now that he spoke out, they dismissed him. So
Mr. Ba, do you think this space, the small space we left for we hold a national conversation? I mean, domestically, I'm talking about back there with other interested parties of interest, stakeholders, and you name it. Do you think that space, as we see, it will become more, it will contract more? I mean, it will close down that space. And secondly, we'll talk about the video actually will come out from presidential guards. Of course, it's abhorrent, distasteful. But the question I want to ask about that video day, then bodyguard and they're not going to make that video day and send them out on their own. Do you think, would you think that it was sanctioned by a higher up authority? Because I don't think they will do it on their own. What's your thoughts again on the two things they did, please?
In the first place, the space. Government will do everything to constrict the space, for narrow the space, but citizens, they always got to find ways for subvert not in illegal means, but for challenge and overturn government's grip on information dissemination. These days, with the current technological generation, governments and dictators get for land for live with people and ability. China, they book control. Russia, Russia. We get one of the best investigations we happen in Russia from a group of investigative journalists, and the evidence came from the street. with the Navalny poisoning situation. So what should I say? The government of Sierra Leone were able, no matter how they try, they will not be able to suppress everybody into silence. It's impossible. In fact, they've lost the debate on public policy. They're not able to debate now on violence all over the place.
So do you believe in the concept we just talk about, in other words, the government just believe in violence, that the concept of, I think that's Sun Tzu, the Chinese philosopher, on the art of war, that when you try for boxer people or cage people and you not provide an exit strategy, obviously they will fight back, they will come back.
Yeah, in their interest for do so. But coming to this, which is why you see this, the two are related. The constriction of the space, people determination for engage government and hold leaders accountable and speak out, and come to this question of the presidential guard force presenting an audio to threaten people with death if you then continue for express their civic rights and human rights, right to assembly, right to speech, and all that. Nothing of that nature will happen without the authorization of this current president. And the president not only don't indicate that, he don't tell me that. He was on radio a couple of days ago, weeks, and on a supposed town hall where he said, they asked him, what do you think of the ongoing harassment, basically the ongoing media harassment of the Auditor General by members of your party? Because the Global Times, that is in the forefront of the media campaign against the First Lady, is owned and operated by SLPP, members of the SLPP, who are not only members of the party, but members of the administration. A board chairman, Suri Fofana, is the leading owner of the paper. The former editor or the editor of the paper is also the board chairman of the Sierra Leone Road Safety Authority. So this paper, nine the lead, and two journalists there, and then paper, nine lead the attack against the 40 and even the attack against me. So they asked the president a simple question: what do you think of the harassment of this woman, the audit service, for having done so wonderful? He said, what do you say about my wife? Okay.
Were you disappointed or was it expected?
So basically, that tells you the president, the
mindset.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about the division in the country? The country is polarized. He said, I'm not responsible for that. Everybody, that's how I inherited it, and it's going to be that way. So
wow, Mr. Ba.
Basically, you don't have to look too far.
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Ba. But here is it. Finally, Mr. Ba. Finally, Mr. Ba. I've got no more questions to ask you, other than ask you if you can round up this marvelous, awesome program which we've just held. And I want to say thank you, for your time. Not forget for add insight how the people can be primed for prepare for what is to come.
So tonight, immediately after this program, maybe within the next 30 minutes, I will post on my Facebook without not an article, but all the cash transaction carried out by the First Lady in 2018, 2019, 2020, and with notes of also the budgetary allocations. That now a prelude to an analysis that is to come in the next couple of days, where we intend to show that the Ministry of Finance lied about the fact that the allocation to the First Lady was just 1%. So we want to show almost this First Lady, but now we just show on our first, because we've never published the 2019 bank statement. I know we did release the bank statement of the First Lady for 2018. We've never published 2019 and 2020. But some of the information we don't talk about, but we want to show the evidence. So we've put together the transaction details of all the cash withdrawals from 2018, June to December 2020. Okay, that is for the entire 3 years that they've been, with the exception of January, February, March, and this April. And let me also tell people we are keeping government on track. So we intend to do this as part of our ongoing contribution to the discussion. And let us don't relent. The government is in denial, but they know that they've been faced with a challenge now. They have this explanation to make. They are trying very hard to distract the people. We have to keep them focus on the issues we want to discuss, whether it's issue of transparency, issue of good governance, issues around census. We have to set the terms for the discussion that we want to have, and then undertake that discussion. But government knows that when they say something not happy and everybody they go talk this. So sometimes they throw these things. Yeah. They use people to throw these things out so that people will talk about that while they do some other things. So we have to also distinguish which conversation we put with energy on and which conversation we ignore, which conversation we take on and which conversation. Citizens must set the agenda of the public debate. That is basically what it is in a democracy. And that's how governments will be forced to engage with what the people want to talk about, not what the government wants us to talk about. Once we arrive at that point, then the nature and character of governance and democracy, they change. And people don't get away for hide. And that's how you expose also the opportunists and the agents of the state where they hide in we pretend, say they are neutral, but they are not, because you have to draw the lines clearly. It's either you are with the people or you are with the state against the people. So once we draw these lines, and then we know who we are. So when things change, people will go either fall with the state or rise with the people. That's how we have to make the conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ba. Sister Kadi Johnson Cole, I mean, you've been very patient with us, and you make one contribution to the program. The other guests, they've been observers in the back room, which is not too bad enough. So give me one final 2 minutes of your overview of the program, and any other thoughts. Just 2 minutes, please. Sister Kadi Johnson Cole. You're mute.
Mr. Badia, clarify something for me. You mentioned about JMB wing. Did they get funds from the government? I'm not being understand. I'm not being pick that side. Mr. Badongo?
No,
you.
They ask you. You know, you mentioned.
I just mentioned these various.
Did they get money from the government?
No, I now make a comment on their source of funding for now. I just talk about the Mada and Fatima Bio Foundation. I just point to the fact that there's these different components of the operation where we also have to pay attention to. But I don't want to precipitate what is going on there for now.
What I want to tell you, Mr. Funnily, me and somebody, I've been talking with somebody tonight before even, I just done at the time I realized this program they on where I see Queen's a message, I don't forget say, we had a mention to the person say, any government will come in power next. If Mr. Back continue for do this work where he do so, they forgive him an award. They forgive him one of the highest award not all in Nassau. That was what I said actually today, this evening, just before I come on this show. Yes, so I want to thank you very, very much for all which you don't do, because we don't ever see journalists in a salon for go to such length. We go. And anybody we like Sierra Leone, no go against within you don't see. It's so easy for CC. There is some truth, if not 100% truth, you understand, but I think there's a degree of truth, but all which you don't tell me for make anybody we like salon, not for doubt you, for applaud you for that. You see, even though the government not go see you that way, the members, supporters of the government would not see you that way, would not even appreciate the length that you don't go through. But me want to tell you thank you, and I would like for you continue to do that work, because me, anybody where they fight corruption, are always then at the same page with that person. I support anybody's fight corruption. If they fight corruption against me, your husband say for me picking them, I will support you. So long as you fight corruption, because corruption don't make so many people they suffer in a salon. So many people they in a salon with poverty. So now that's what I just want to say. I want to tell you thank you and not give up and not succumb to people that will try to discourage you from doing what you want to do. We are all for you. Now the very first time this actually sit down to listen to you for the very first time. Although I can hear with you they say. So me in a one person way, I really, really applaud you and I thank you so much. If I am to be the next president of Sierra Leone, I can assure you that you will get the highest award. Thank you so much. Okay. No, that's number one thing. Thank you, Mr. Kroma.
Yes, Sister, thank you so much for your contribution. And obviously, Mr. Badon wrap up the program. What an awesome program this has been. What an awesome road this has been. Mr. Bad never disappoints. And you can see the sentiments expressed by one of we observers in the room. We happen for meet Mr. Ba tonight and able for talk to him directly and appreciate the work we do. And I'm sure there are millions and millions of Sierra Leoneans who discourage social media all of the time. And we know the message they resonate. We have to make that absolutely clear. And there are people, like I say again, millions who really appreciate the work that is being done. And any work where is done on a righteous ground, obviously, shall prevail. It's as simple as that. Many, many thanks, Mr. Ba.
Thank you.
Okay, so Fambule, we don't effectively come to the end of the program. I will just play the national anthem for one final time, and then we close this program. But it's been a wonderful run, and we still get about almost 400 people still in on the platform. So they are going to begin for wind down now as the platform, as the national anthem they play. We officially usher in the 60th birth anniversary of the country, the nation, Sierra Leone. And in 8 minutes time. So again, I tell you now, the program don't effectively finish. So with the wind down now, so Fambule, please when I begin for come off the platform because I'm not just one log off on over 300 people. Thank you so much for watching and happy Independence anniversary to everybody. Everybody, I mean everybody. Thank you so much all. Okay. For all fighters spread, mighty the nation whom they led. And that we love our Sierra Leone. Sap our hearts and our voices on high, the hills and the valleys we echo our cry. Blessings of peace, that we love our Sierra Leone. Last one. Happy Independence to all. Thank you so much for listening. Fambule Mulon come to the end of the program, and I tell you, thank you very much. This has been the Then and Now. I've been your marvelous host and presenter, Prince Emil Koma. Tomorrow, Sister Aisata Kabia, former honorable parliamentarian and minister, will be on this platform 9 o'clock. Not forget for tune, 8 o'clock Sierra Leone time, 9 o'clock British time, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rather Eastern time. Good night, everyone.